The walls of time are breaking down. You need to listen. The only way to save the universe. Watch Type 40.
It's time for Type 40 Live, Live 175. We're materialising on air again with the live stream Doctor Who magazine show all across your view screen here in real time on Rumble, X, YouTube and on Facebook too. We're in front of a live chat full of friends, fans and companions just like you. Not just to deep dive into all things Doctor Who, nearly 61 years of Doctor Who now, but everything else that's circling around the Whoniverse. All those incarnations. So much to talk about as always. But on this one, we are also, we're pulling up the shutters, pulling to open Doctor Who Podcast Day for 2024. So the console room's waiting for our specially invited panel of content creators and regulars. Plug in and geek out here with Type 40 Live on air.
Welcome to Type 40.
Just like he said, I'm Dan Hadley, Birmingham's King of the Geeks. Welcome back, everybody. Or if you're joining us for the first time, welcome aboard, of course. If you're there in the Type 40 Facebook group, you know what you've got to do by now. Please remember to hit that little blue link, and that way Facebook will tell StreamYard who you are. StreamYard tells us, and we all get on first name terms for this special party edition of Type 40 Live for Doctor Who Podcast Day. Now, we've got the console room here, got the right bulbs in, and the floor looks a bit shiny. Could be a health and safety nightmare if anybody wants to do donuts all around that. And with this crowd, who knows? We're joined by not one, not two, but three seasoned and sensational Doctor Who content creators from all across the time zones. But I'm happy to say, before we get to them, I can bring in some old hands here. I think he's ready. He's correct. He's as correct as he's ever going to be. It's Mr. Simon Horton.
I don't like the way you call me an old hand. Can I be offended by that? I'm sure you can. I'm sure there's a law against that somewhere.
But whenever I call you a style icon, you look at me quite blankly. You've dressed to match the splat again.
I don't know how this happens, Dan. This is purely coincidental. You'd think we planned this, but we don't at all, folks. We don't plan this. It just kind of happens.
Too cool for school. How have you been this week? Okay.
Yes, busy. Just busy.
Too busy for Doctor Who news?
Yeah, has there been any Doctor Who news? Presumably, yes. Busy. Too busy with Doctor Who news, I think, yeah.
You may have been too busy for the news, but you're never too busy to talk about Doctor Who. I know that only too well. And, we're looking at this console room. It's all well and good. It's all very modern and blah, 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 and very kind of, and very, very Disney. But I think we should go old school for this one because it's British summertime. So let's get out there and, get the tent out. So here we are. Let's go to this console room, I think. This is our TARDIS tent for the show. I'm not sure how many people will be able to fit in, but there's certainly enough room for Charlotte Shields, I'd say, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I should think so.
I don't think we'll fit many others in there, Dan.
I think basically, Charlotte, it means that you're either Tegan or Nyssa. I am definitely Adric, I'm afraid, which probably puts Dan, are you the Doctor, I'm assuming, on this one?
For the sake of argument, why not?
I'm definitely Andrew.
How about dependent on what we talk about? I can be Tegan or Nissa.
There you go.
Dependent on the topic.
There'll be people out there screaming now in recognition. I had one of those. Maybe they did. I don't know. We'll find out as the show goes on.
I just remember the photo on the front that had the Tegan, Nissa, and Adric and the Doctor dressed up, and they were 5-year-olds, this big. I mean, it's just the most ridiculous thing. But there we go. Good fun. Good fun. I don't know anybody that actually had one. I bet one of the guests tonight had one. I bet you I know who had one.
That's exactly where I was going. Of course, this is our lead in our launch show to Doctor Who Podcast Day. I know for some of you out there, it's already Doctor Who Podcast Day. It's already Friday. So, it counts. It absolutely counts. So this is a one-day event to celebrate the community and the creativity of Doctor Who podcasting for both the listeners as well as the content creators. Everybody in the equation, in fact. So the idea is it's on the 9th of August every single year, and a nod to the legacy of Doctor Who podcasting. We're going to come to that in a couple of minutes. So who have we got first? Let's grab them. Let's grab them before they can get away. I know who we'll go for first. So this gentleman, he is the OG Doctor Who podcaster, the very much respected content creator, showrunner of a massive convention over in the States, L.I. Who, and now a proper seasoned writer and editor of two hugely popular books over the last couple of years. We've had him on the show before. I think it was on one of the podcasts. This is his first time on a live stream. You know what I'm talking about. Who could it possibly be but Mr. Ken Deep?
Hi there. That is definitely all not true.
No, I know this. You are Ken Deep. Absolutely. I know this.
Writer, especially with, so many amazing writers in Doctor Who fandom. I'm a hack. I typed words once into a book. But I will claim credit for being one of the original Doctor Who podcasters. But that's also just another thing that's absolutely exploded. So many people have come along and done amazing things with it. Everything from the astoundingly regular, what are they on? Almost 1,000 episodes, Radio Free Scaro, to Toby Hadoke's incredible digging into finding actors and production people that we didn't even know were still alive that had incredible stories. I mean, the list goes on and on. It really is. It's amazing. It's great.
People finding their groove, Ken, and you guys started it all, didn't you? Back in 2005 with Doctor Who Pod Shop.
It's all your fault, Ken. It's all your fault. This.
I made the mistake once, more than once, back in the show, and I'd say, "Yeah, this podcasting thing is easy," and everybody else went, "Yeah, it sure is." And now there's hundreds of them, it's beautiful. It really is. It's a nice feeling to sort of be there at the start and see, just how incredible it is. And it's a great community.
It is indeed, and lots of them gather together on the 9th of August last year to drop special editions of their regular podcasts, and it's happening again this year for Doctor Who Podcast Day on Friday the 9th of August. So that's now or tomorrow, depending on where you are. And so we thought we'd start the party early here with our regular live stream on Type 40 Live. So we'll come to your books and your conventions and everything else in a little while, Ken. But it's great to have you on the show. Settle back. You're going to like this. I promise you're going to like this. Okay, next. Who's next? So you talk about content creation. The challenge of content creation, of keeping it fresh and moving with the times. This man knows all about it. He does audio, he does video, he does social media, and he's got a great radio voice. I'm very, very blessed. Last time I spoke to him, he's got a huge beard. I didn't even think it was the same guy, but it absolutely is. It's Mark Who 42 himself, Mark Baumgarten, back on the show. Hi, Mark.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hello, Mark.
Hello.
Happy to have you aboard, mate.
I'm glad to be here. I have a radio voice. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You've just got it. Whatever that is, you've got it. You've just got one of those voices you hear drifting out of the car stereo.
The dulcet tones of Mark Baumgarten. Yeah. There you go.
And so people out there may recognise your voice or your face.
Yeah.
Maybe even both from Mark Who 42. You've been producing this podcast for quite a long time, haven't you now? Remind me of when you started.
Yeah, we started back in 2012. In 2012, it was called Mark Who 42's Whoniverse. So I think a certain BBC owes me some money here.
Could be right. You could be right.
Get your lawyers on it, Mark.
But we did Doctor Who. We interviewed celebrities. We've done over 150 interviews of Doctor Who, Star Trek, and other celebrities, which you can find those shows on YouTube on a playlist called Classic Mark Who 42. If you go to YouTube / at Mark Who 42, we've got some great interviews there. And we did that through 2018. And then in 2018, we kind of went a little away from Doctor Who. We started covering science fiction in general, because there are so many Doctor Who podcasts out there. And we didn't want to be, the ones beating on the door and competing and stuff. But we do cover Doctor Who. We did the reviews of the anniversary stories. We just finished doing season 1. So we have a good time, and we've got a nice one for tomorrow or today, depending on where in the world you are.
Oh, I can't wait to hear all about it. So you've got the bit between your teeth again. Great to hear. Great to hear, Mark. And you're quite right, because there's a lot of competition out there, hundreds of them, and at least 5 of them are fronted by our next guest. So he's an actor. He's a stand-up comedian. He's a presenter. He's laughing at my jokes. I love him already. He's an obituarist. Is that even a word? I don't know. And does he do after dinner speaking, Simon? I think he probably does. If he doesn't already, he probably will any day now. Who else could it be? Of course, but the one, the only Mr. Toby Hadoke.
Oh, is that me? Hello. Hello.
It's definitely you.
I've never done one of these before. I said, is it called a live stream? I've never done one. So
it is.
Yeah, it's all right. But if you say no, we just edit it out afterwards. It's not actually.
We use magic to make all those mistakes disappear.
Good. Well, yeah. So no. Well, hello. So hello. Yes.
Hello.
Nice. Thanks for asking. You asked nicely, so I said yes, but I don't know what I'm doing. Hello.
Sit back, hold tight, laugh at all the jokes, and hope for the best, Toby. That's what I do every week.
Good. All right.
So yes, how many podcasts do you front? In all sincerity, because you've been, your name has been on the credits of so many things now. Whether it's audio CDs, whether it's Blu-ray releases, people will know your name, and you're the kind of guy who,
might even hate it.
No. But when people want, for example, BBC Breakfast or daytime TV, when they want to bring in a tame Doctor Who fan, you're the bloke they tend to call, aren't you?
Cheap and available, I think.
Done for a bus fare and a bag of Maltesers.
and of course, since the BBC moved to Manchester as well, BBC Breakfast is just down the road, so I'm easy.
That's handy,
and that's not why I moved here.
Honest.
Yeah, I did the first podcast I did was in the 50th anniversary, but I let sort of Big Finish do all the sort of technical stuff, because I thought it was actually much harder than it turns out to be. You just have to press a button and it's on. So, but I thought you had to own a bit of the internet. I didn't know how it worked. So I did these interviews where I tracked down loads, but I was going through a divorce basically, and needed something to keep me happy. So
been there, done that.
So I decided to wander around the country. I was touring my show at the same time as well, and decided while I was doing that, I would stop off at places and interview Vord, because why not? And then when lockdown happened, I mean, it's not just Doctor Who fans that have podcasts. Middle-aged,
really,
male comedians also always have podcasts. So the Venn diagram cross. I'm the ultimate sort of podcast sort of demographic. So and I couldn't decide what sort of podcast to do during lockdown. So I chose 3 different ones and made a rod for my.
Of course, you did.
Yeah, but something to do in it.
Well, I've been and had a look at your feed, and the link to Toby's feed is in the show notes to the podcast and the live stream as well, so everybody can go and get hold of Mark's content, and Ken's links are already there. But don't go and check them now. Wait until the show's over, obviously. So yeah, I've seen all these shows that you put out, but you do have it all under the one feed, so it's fairly easy to find, isn't it? And obviously there's the stuff you've done for Big Finish as well there, the Who's Round show. That seemed to run for, didn't you say it was going to run for the entirety of the 50th anniversary, and you were still doing it like 4 or 5 years later?
Yeah, it was going to run for the entirety of the 50th anniversary, but then they couldn't put them out as quickly as I was doing them. So then
I see.
it bled into the following year. But then there were people I'd not managed to get. And I thought, well, it's January the 10th, 2014. I'm not going to say no to Linda Bellingham or whatever. So
Who would?
I carried on. I carried on and gradually kind of I slowed down a lot. But if somebody became a possibility, but then I just got a bit tired. But yeah, I carried on. I did about 250 episodes of that, and yet the others are all under one feed because I chose to do 3 different podcasts. But if I put them out under 3 different feeds, I'd have had to pay three times. So I've given them an umbrella theme, and you can all find them in the same place for one. So then I only have to pay once.
Clever,
very prudent, very prudent.
Yeah.
Do you miss it at all, Ken? Because you're not actually podcast creating at the moment, are you? But you do jump from show to show, promoting various things. So when you hear Toby talk like that about balancing all his different podcasts, they're spinning all those plates. Do you think, oh, I gotta go back? No, he's shaking his head, Charlotte. He's shaking his head.
No, because the poor guy looks dressed, and I don't know how. So, I like popping in and joining somebody else because each time it's something a little bit different, and honest, I really have so much respect for the people who can keep going at it and find something new and find something fresh to say. And I think if I had something that I wanted to say, maybe, but I think I don't know. I think I've scratched that itch maybe, but I like popping in because different podcasters have a different sensibility. We talk about different things, whether it's the new season or classic Who or whatever.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Or you could just say the same things week in, week out, like we do, Simon.
Same jokes, Dan, yeah?
Well, we've always kind of said, do we ever think we're going to get to the point where we're going to stop talking about Doctor Who? Is there going to be a point where we said everything there is to say? Clearly, that's never, ever going to happen. Clearly.
I'm not going to lie. My family do literally say to me, Charlotte, do you seriously not get fed up of talking about Doctor Who every week? And I'm like, no. They think I'm a bit crazy, I think, honestly.
Yes. So what I was wondering, hearing Toby speak there, and obviously Mark so full of enthusiasm and energy, he's like a podcast machine there, Ken. When you look at the whole process of content creation, it does change. It has evolved. You could say all we really need is a voice, because a podcast is just a conversation, really. And people do assume, probably correctly, that all podcasters, all content creators love the sound of our own voices. That's probably true as well. But the way I look at it, Mark, is if it was as simple as that, we'd just leave ourselves voicemails, wouldn't we? And then listen to them. There must be some other component to that.
It's just talking about what you love, Doctor Who, talking with other people about Doctor Who. Because I could call someone up on the phone and just have a conversation about Doctor Who, and that's it. But I like presenting. Public speaking has become something I really enjoy doing. I do conventions, I run panels and do interviews. So I enjoy doing that. And a lot of times I feel that, maybe I have something that other people want to know about, not just the one person I'm talking to. So a podcast really comes in well for that. Also, if you have someone on who wants to promote something in the world of Doctor Who, can't do that on the phone, but it's easy to podcast and put it out there.
So you're all over all podcatchers, aren't you? All the best ones, all the big ones that people will know. You're there, pretty easy to find. And your latest 2 editions have covered the latest season, haven't they? And you're about to look at the Hugo Awards. So that's a very particular thing, isn't it?
Yeah, the Hugo Awards, we actually put that out about a week or 2 ago. And the Hugo Awards are actually happening in Glasgow, I think on the 11th. So what is that? That's Sunday? So Sunday, and we'll see if any of the ones we talked about are gonna be the winners. One of the people on my team, Juan San Miguel, who basically goes to World Cons every year, is in Glasgow right now. He did a panel today where he, I promoted our show as part of it. That was kind of cool. But, he enjoys Worldcon, and he is always voting for the Hugo Awards. Every time, this is the second time we've done a Hugo Award show. And each time I say, well, okay, so who do you think is going to win? And he's like, no, I don't do that. Because he doesn't want to give his answer.
He's not a pundit.
He's not a pundit. He just wants to get all the information out there, kind of like us podcasters. Get the information out there, and let the people who are watching decide on their own or listening.
So you've got a team, haven't you, of co-hosts there? There's
Yeah.
Vicky, Zion, and
Vicky
Juan.
Jakubowski, Zion, Kiros. Yeah, we've had so many others over the years. Patty Hawkins, we've had on. We've had Trish and Ed Fryer. They're really great guys. We've had a lot of people on our show over the. I guess what is it? 12 years now? Yeah, 12 years. And we've had
12 years.
Yeah.
And I thought we'd been doing this for a long time, Simon, like at
It
nearly
just feels,
6/7.
feels like a long time.
And
So
if there were podcasts in the before 2000, I probably would have been doing them then too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got that kind of zoo mentality where everybody's sort of all in together having fun. You've got correspondence as well, going out and doing various things for you. And then there's you, Toby, which you're largely a kind of one-man band, aren't you? You do some great interviews. You're a fantastic interviewer. But generally speaking, your shows are very much powered by your personality, aren't they? And sort of conversations one has with oneself.
Well, I'm gonna give a contrary view to the idea that it might be to do with liking the sound of one's own voice. I find this a lot with performers, and I definitely put myself into this camp. There's two things. There's one, it's the practical thing. I used to get knots in my stomach phoning people up, asking them to be interviewed. I'd then worry about when it was approaching. I'd worry about phoning them to confirm, each time expecting them to tell me to F off. I'd worry that they wouldn't turn
I've
up.
had that.
I'd worry that it would go badly, and I'd worry that afterwards they'd ring me up and tell me they thought I was a dick. So it's a really agonizing process. And it just got to the point when I'd done loads of them, I thought, I think I've probably... And there's a lovely chap called Alex Moore and a few other people who started tracking people down, and they're interviewing people. I think, well, there's not the need for it to I was doing it because nobody else seemed to be doing it. And I thought I'd like to hear from these people. Well, if I want to hear from those people, I may as well find them. So it's being done, and I found it so much less stressful. But in terms of the ones I do now, the reason it's a one-man band is because then I don't have to worry about anybody else. I mean, my commentaries, I do have guests, but they send me their stuff in a file, and they do an introduction. And they tell me their favorite things about the episodes. So when I'm doing the commentary, I have to guess what that favorite thing might be, and then I play it back. Then I play their contribution, which I've not listened to, and I get a point if I choose the same thing as them, and I don't if I don't. But it's just a way of bringing another voice in, but me not having to arrange it when it's suitable for them. And it means that I can record them during my usual sort of hours, which are sort of 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, which would be rude to ask anybody to be available. So there's a practical element to it, but also I find it. Because I think people have this view of performers and comedians of people who enjoy the sound of their own voice, whatever. I don't like listening back to my stuff, which is why they're unedited. Again, it's a practical thing because listening to myself makes me feel physically sick, and I actually find it a performance creating all of that a good place to hide. I'm not very good. I'm not very socially robust, but I can do a monologue.
Yeah.
So actually, for me, it's less, enjoying the crowd and more sort of hiding within a performance, which is an easier conversation to have, I guess.
Well, how fantastic, how idiosyncratic as well. And I'm so jealous now as well, Mark and Ken, the hours I've spent editing, and this guy just puts it out there, just records it, all goes out raw. I mean, I suppose it's kind of like doing this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think Toby just doesn't want to pay his staff.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that too. Yeah.
I used to meticulously edit. I don't do that anymore. I like it coming out like it's a live radio show. If something really gets messed up, I will take it out, but I try to leave everything in now.
Do you know what I think is really strange? Because sometimes we will do recorded shows. In fact, Charlotte, Dan, and I did a recorded show only a couple of days ago. And sometimes we do live. And it's really funny because with the live ones, I mean, I prefer doing the live ones to the recorded ones simply because I love the immediacy of it. And I love the contributions that we get, the chatting, and I hope you three guys are looking at the comments that are coming in because there's lots of lovely comments for the three of you. Yeah. So it's lovely to see those comments coming in. But it's funny because when we do a recorded one, we're all really hypersensitive about it. We make so many mistakes. Dan spends so long editing. We go back and take so many things out that we simply can't do with the live ones. And I'm always sitting there thinking, we're doing this recording. Why is it that we're making so many mistakes and we're correcting ourselves and editing it? Whereas when it's live, we just don't care. You just go with it, and it just doesn't matter.
As well,
and I love that.
The difference is with the live, like, because your reactions, you can't fake it. Like, you literally, what happens, whether it's like a bit of news that you get told the first time, because on purpose, when Dan's like, oh, we're going to talk about more current news stuff, I won't look for it because I don't want to sort of have an opinion beforehand. I want it to be with everybody.
Immediate.
I find that
Spontaneous, yeah.
And then the good thing is about being live, you react, and then you can see the chat react to your reaction, and people be like, wow, that's either like surprised you or taken you back. And that's what I find so much fun compared to the live.
That is such a great segue, Charlotte. It's far better than the one that I had in my head as well, because it is that time. Yeah, this is Type 40 live on air for Doctor Who Podcast Day. Here's some of the Doctor Who luminaries that have waved the flag for Type 40. Not for Type 40, sorry, for Doctor Who Podcast Day over the last year or so. People that you've tracked down, haven't you, Ken? Doggedly tracked down in various public places. Say, here, hold this and say that. And it's, so obviously, thanks to everybody there. The late Michael Jason, of course, we had so much fun with at Hooverville last year. Such a great guy. Peter Purvis, Katie Manning. You got Fraser Hines there, as well as Daisy Ashford. And there's Ken at the top himself there. So everybody who's ever promoted Doctor Who Podcast Day for us, fantastic. Thank you very much. So yes, as Charlotte was saying, there's a live chat full of people who've been listening to all of this nonsense. They've got something to say as well. They're watching us across YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and on X2. Let's go and check out what they've got to say about all of this.
You're watching Type 40.
Yes, they're here. Roll up, roll up. We are live, and we have a full panel. Hi, everyone, says Lord Thoth. Hiya, mate. And we have my name is Charlie as well there. Mark says, ahoy, spaceship mates.
That's a new one.
Yeah, I haven't seen my name is Charlie before. Welcome, my name is Charlie.
But there is an explanation. Charlie has a lingering hangover from yesterday, so can everyone please type quietly to our best. Crimpling Doubloon says, ahoy, all shipmates, Toby. You a shipmate?
Well, I'm game. Yeah, sure.
Ever what you say.
Get up the rigging. Get up the rigging. David Mullins in as well, and he's off work this week. I didn't realise we're on Thursday already. You've been pissed for like 72 hours, David. Is that what it is? Dear me, we'll settle back and sink into sobriety when you listen to what we've got to say. Peter Harrington's here as well and says, good evening all. Good evening all. Charlotte from Peter. And Stephen Braddock, what a fool. He's been looking forward to the show all week. Oh, it's because it means it's Friday tomorrow, Ken. This is the kind of punters we get.
Cool. That's a backhanded compliment if ever we've heard.
We know our worth, don't we, by that comment?
Evening Doctor Who fan, says Matthew Butterfield. Hi, Matthew. Happy to have you back as well. And we've got John Yordan in the live chat as well. Our mate John. Cheers for being there, John. Hope you're well. We'll catch up with you again soon. I know we've got something recorded with John that's coming very, very soon. Once I edit it, Toby.
That's the mistake.
Who else have we got? Let's see. We've got Mark Milford. He's kicking around as well. One of the other regulars. Stephen Braddock, Psychics Beats, is in too. Just says hello. Very cool. He says hello. And Gary Akers, the retro doc, he's also in and says greetings to one and to all. Mark, that does include you.
Great.
Simon Ashley says evening all, and we've got Vanessa Law in the live chat as well, one of our very loyal and determined and fair-minded of moderators. So thanks for being there as always, Vanessa. I hope you're having a fabulous summer. In fact, I thought she was on holiday. She must have been a short one. Must have been a long weekend or something. Connor is in the live chat as well and says hello guys. Simon, hello guys.
Hello Connor.
I love it when people call us guys, and even better, Toby, is dudes. I've always wanted to be a dude.
Yeah, we like it when we get called dudes.
I want to know why some of them have spanners.
That's a good question. I had that question too.
Oh, I'm really glad you asked that. I will tell you.
It doesn't mean that they're tools. It means that they're handpicked.
You can't say that, Dan. Edit it out. Cut it out.
Yeah, well, this is what we'll cut that out later. They're our hand-picked team of crack moderators. So they are there in the live chat, making sure that nobody misbehaves and there's no bad language or anything like that. That just comes from us, and removing any comments from any bots, anybody sort of trying to sell anything or distribute unseemly material. So that's what the wrench is.
I want to buy unseemly material. I want to buy stuff.
I'll send it to you later, mate. Don't worry about it. We can sort you out with all of that. Komodo actually could be one to... No, I won't say it. Hail, Komodo. Happy to have you back as well. And
Don't
Rob
scare the viewers
Alexander's
away,
in as well.
Dan.
Yes. We're all having... It's like a party atmosphere here. The talents of Wayne Chiang is in as well. Great.
I like that one.
Very good. Yeah, I like that.
Excellent work, Wayne. Happy to have you back. And Rob is pleased to see you, Simon.
Oh, Rob, it's lovely to see you too. It's because I've been off for a couple of weeks, so it's good to be back again. Thank you. I was off in Toby's neck of the woods, up in Yorkshire, actually. Not a million miles away from you, probably.
Fabulous. Tom from T Dwarf Productions is in as well.
Hello,
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I'm late, he says, but I've been making some more models and caring for my pets. Well, that's a pretty good excuse, Tom. I'm glad you're here anyway.
He's got new pets. He's got a new crab. He's got a new praying mantis. I kid you not.
Really?
It's not my idea of hell, but there we go.
And we have some fabulous fan art from Tom coming up later on in the show in the gallery as well. Gary Akers, the Retro Doc, says it's podcast day eve. Everyone, put your milk and cookies out tonight from when Russell T Davies comes down your chimney.
I think we could get taken off the air for that comment, actually.
Oh, God, I've just got it. Yeah, nice work, Gary. And who else is here? Yes, Vanessa and David Jenkins is into. Hi, everyone. Lots of that sort of thing. Happy to see so many familiar names and faces, and lots of new people too. So yes, settle down. We've got a lot to get into. My name is Charlie. Says it's lovely, Toby. You've got a fan there, Toby.
Oh well, hello, Charlie. Although somebody who left a mean message on one of my internet on one of my YouTube things said, "Hello, lovely Toby" or something. So it started off sounding nice, and then they just said it was shit.
Everyone's a critic, Toby.
Well, so I wonder if that's some sort of way of disguising yourself from getting your comment removed by the clever
the people with the spanner.
The robot, the cyberspace spanner people. It said lovely. We won't read the rest of it. So I'm going to keep my eye on what else Charlie says, because that may be his Trojan horse.
What they call a sock puppet. Stephen Braddock says he loves your work on the Doctor Who Blu-ray collections.
Yeah. We all do.
Yeah, we all do.
Well,
and Steve Who 77. I don't think Steve is 77. I think it's a fun thing he does with the name.
I'm guessing maybe.
Born in 77. That's probably it. And Steve says, Type 40 and Toby come together. Happy times and places indeed. Yes, we're here with Toby Hadoke, with Mark Baumgarten, and with Ken Deep as well. Content creators and fantastic guys all. We've got hi from Ian Scales there.
Hello,
and
Ian.
We've got David Mullen says, I'm currently listening to Toby in the car on the Green Death talkback commentary. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're great. Some of those commentaries, Toby, are great. I've got them myself. Talkbacks.
It's a terrible thing because I then had to work out which one it was, because I'm on the DVD commentary of the Green Death. I've done the talkback one for Phantom Mills, and I've done one for my podcast, which suggests to me I should shut up about Green Death.
Maybe you said enough about the Green Death.
Good enough.
There's only so many maggots you can cope with.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, John has spotted the Daleks behind you as well, Toby. You've got house guests of your own.
Yeah. Just in case anyone visiting isn't sure.
So we've got lots more comments as well. Corbin is in as well. There he is. There's Corbin. He says hello all.
Hello,
and there's
Corbin.
lots more people arriving by the minute. And yeah, lots of people saying hello to all of you. The Space Babies podcast is a classic. I think Stephen's talking about our review, Simon, Charlotte. People love that.
I find it funny.
Did they really?
They did.
Apparently, Simon, the one where we're all arguing and having very different opinions, they all love.
They clearly like the controversy. That's what it is.
They do, clearly.
They do. They've come to the right place. Yes, keep those comments coming. We want more of the good stuff and the bad stuff and everything in between here at Type 40 Live, all for Doctor Who Podcast Day 2024 as well. These gentlemen have joined us to start off proceedings. Obviously, tomorrow is the big day itself, where podcasts from across the world will be dropping their episodes, all using these two hashtags as well to get in the swim, get trending, and maybe for you listeners out there to pick up on new shows or reconnect with shows that you haven't heard for a while, and to trade tips, recommendations about the shows that make your commute. That's how it tends to work with podcasts, Simon. People listen to them on the way to and from work, when they're doing the washing up, when they're in the bath, walking the dog, that kind of thing.
I'm always listening to them. I've got them just set up on my computer. I'll just, while I'm working at my computer, I've always got podcasts just playing in the background that I'm busy listening to. But then I just keep on having to rewind it because I think, what did they say? And I missed it, so I have to keep rewinding. So you'd think it'd be easy just to sit and listen. But I have to say, we are in very illustrious company tonight with these three gentlemen, and I feel we are not worthy. I mean, we are bowing down before you. We definitely don't feel worthy. It's good to be on the same show as you guys, quite frankly.
So, do you get much time, Ken? You're not producing one at the moment, but I gather you must listen to a lot of podcasts because you do a lot of traveling as well, don't you?
Yeah, I'm a long-time podcast listener. To me, a couple quick things just about podcasts in general. I mean, especially going back 19 years. But they're what, about 20 years old now, podcasts?
Around that.
You're getting exactly what you want to hear. So when I'm in the car and I'm listening to a Doctor Who podcast, they're talking about a topic I want to hear about. I'm not at the mercy of whatever's on the radio, whatever's just being, fed down the pipe. That makes sense if you're looking for news and weather. You have to get certain things, but sometimes I don't really care what Britney Spears is up to or whatever. I want news about.
Wow.
I want to hear about space babies. I want to hear Toby interviewing someone from 1964, enlightening me about my favorite episode. There's stuff like that. The other thing that at the start, which was a nightmare, and now is people, ad agencies are getting wise to. One of the things that was a tough thing at the start was to try to convince advertisers that with a podcast you get 100% of your target audience. Yeah. If you're selling Star Trek, well, a Star Trek podcast hits your target audience perfectly. In Doctor Who, if you're a Doctor Who convention, if you're selling a Doctor Who book, a comic, whatever, the listeners are Doctor Who fans. And you don't get that kind of specificity anywhere else. A radio station, a television station, they cast a wide net to the lowest common denominator, and we don't.
I hadn't quite looked at it like that. And obviously, it's you can curate your feed as well, can't you, Toby? I mean, I would imagine the different kind of shows that you do. Maybe some people do listen to every single one, but maybe there are some people who enjoy the interviews more or the commentaries more, so they can pick and choose.
Yeah, I mean, it's all accident, everything I've done. But I think the one lesson I learned when I did my one-man show a decade or so ago called Must Take My Doctor Who Scarf, I just done that as a comedy show. It wasn't designed for Doctor Who fans. And in fact, one of the things that we decided early on was that there should be no jokes in it that only appealed to Doctor Who fans. You should be able to become completely blind. And so I'd sort of mitigated for that. But actually what surprised me was I was telling my story that my director said, nothing should be about Doctor Who that doesn't relate to something that happened in your life. So it ended up being about me going to school and my dad leaving and all of those sorts of things. And so what surprised me was that my story was quite a common story for other people. I did stuff about me remembering the name of every single actor that's ever been in Doctor Who because I thought that was quite funny and people would laugh at me. But actually, lots of people have their own particular thing of that within the subsection of being a Doctor Who fan, but can understand the patterns. So what surprised me was that people felt a commonality, and people sort of said, Doctor Who got me through a hard time as well, or something like that. So that surprised me that there would be that. I didn't think it would be quite as identifiable a thing. So then when I came to do podcasts, I thought, well, it's much like I do with the documentaries for the Blu-rays. I just make, because I used to moan about there not being things that I would want, like an interview with that person or a documentary about that person. And then as I've sort of learned with life, if nobody's doing it, just bloody well, you might as well just bloody do it. So what I do with my podcasts is I just thought, well, I'll do something that I would quite like to hear if anybody other than me was presenting it, and hope that there are enough people that like it. And as Ken said, there's the beauty of Doctor Who is that there are enough people and enough little subsections within Doctor Who fandom, and the way that the entertainment, the dissemination of entertainment now is that there are people. You could do a podcast about cosplaying, for example, which is of no interest to me, but I respect the people that do it, and it takes a lot of skill, and people can disappear down that rabbit hole. And you could do a podcast about that, and there would be enough people to make it worth doing it. And because you don't need to get a commissioner to put it out there, because you can produce stuff at home of broadcast quality these days, it means that the sad thing is, I think that means sometimes we do lose a sort of conversation that everybody has, but that's a wider conversation. You know, I love when there were only 3 channels and everybody at work the next day talked about the same thing. But the upside of that is that if you particularly want to hear a podcast about shoes from the Anedin line, somebody might make one, you know, because there's an Anedin line fan out there who's gone, well, yeah, the actors are all well and good, but I love the shoes, and that's the thing. So that's how it's come. So I think with these things, never, you know, try and tailor it to what you think an audience might want. I've sort of thought, well, what would I like to do? And let's keep our fingers crossed that there are some people out there that want to listen to it. And funnily enough, I mean, I do look at the figures, and when I started out my deep dives, which are the ones that are the hardest, of course, they were the ones that most people like to listen to the most. But now it's sort of evened out, except I wrote special podcasts on the latest episodes, and again, because I didn't want to review them, and because there was loads of that going on, so I wrote sort of little essays based on an element of it, and just tried to do sort of whimsical comic monologues based on some element of the episode. That they, and I don't know if this is a sign of something, that, and I worked really hard on them and really quickly, got the least immediate listens. Maybe it's because there's loads of episodes of things reacting to the latest episodes of Doctor Who, but if I put out me talking about Resurrection of the Daleks, I got a couple of hundred people more than my really carefully crafted 40-minute monologue about 73 yards. Well, so that just
there doesn't appear to be any rhyme or reason to it, does there, Wendy? We've all been caught out like that, Mark.
Toby, one of the brilliant part about Moths is that you spoke from the heart, and it resonated with other Doctor Who fans, because I think we all share a certain amount of common history when it comes to growing up a certain way and liking something geeky like this. There is a common thread. And so the story you tell is heartfelt. And one of the things I'm really impressed with that you've said, you know, both about the podcast and about your stand-up, was that you didn't try to tailor it. You just spoke about what you thought you should say. And you hear that from like musicians and actors and writers and things. People will say, well, I just wrote what I thought I needed to say. And that either captures people or it doesn't, you know. Well, but I think if it's sincere, it captures people.
But you learn that as a stand-up. A lot of stand-ups spend the first 8 years of their career trying to find their voice. And they realize that the voice that they should be speaking in is their own, maybe a slightly exaggerated, slightly more confident, or slightly. And I used to, you know, I learnt my trade in the rough sort of comedy clubs in Manchester on a Friday and Saturday night, and I used to try and sort of coarsen myself up as a sort of carapace to sort of go, yeah, screw you, I can take you on, and I did fine, and I was working at those clubs, but actually the sort of Damascene moment was when, you know, that they would sort of, I would in fact exaggerate the fact that I'm a bit of a middle class twat, which is what they all thought anyway. But if you go on and go, yes, I am, and I'm owning it, and I'm being funny doing it, you can't now. If you yell something at me, I've already done that joke and I've done it better. So you spend ages sort of avoiding what you are, but actually the minute you sort of own it a bit and just go, this is because they can whiff they can whiff artifice. Audiences can whiff artifice.
Well, why do you think Simon and I introduce every show with Birmingham's King of the Geeks?
The other thing that I think, though, is so important, and obviously you're going to get it in podcasting, because we're clearly not going to be sitting here talking for hours about Doctor Who if we don't love Doctor Who. No. And I think that's the thing. It goes along with what you're just saying, Ken, about Toby's Moths at My Scarf show. It's done from the heart. If you do stuff from the heart, so often these days I will see on, I don't know how it is in the States, but on British television, certainly, you'll often see television presenters. Invariably, it's things like news reports. Or sports reports in particular, and you kind of think, I know that you, who are telling me all about Division 1, clearly are not a sports fan, but you're just the right face that the station has decided is going to tell the football reports. And I don't feel it. I don't feel any compassion whatsoever from these people. They've clearly got no interest other than they're getting their face on television, and that's their job, and they're wanting to progress their career. Yeah. And it always feels so desperately false. And I wish television stations in particular would go back to putting people in front of the cameras that clearly do. They might not have a television face, but they clearly know what they're talking about, and they love what they do. Yeah. And that, of course, is what you get on podcasts. You get truth, because we're all ugly mugs, apart from Charlotte. Ugly mugs who just want to talk about geeky stuff and love it, and that's what it's about to me.
But that's part of the thing that makes, or from my mind, is one of the things that really helped podcasts. And now you see podcasts going beyond that into like YouTube and things like that. People want genuine, sincere. They want it authentic. They want the opinion to be authentic, not part of a focus group. They want the downside, though, is that in true news, there's some kind of gatekeeper, right? There's some kind of ethic that or at least you hope is the case, right? Someone verified the story, verified the sources. And that's one of the downsides of what we do. But the upside is that it's unfiltered. You get real opinions, real people saying real things. And I think that's why so many people have rejected traditional media and have gone to things.
Yeah, I think you could be right, Ken. And sometimes we get it wrong. Sometimes we say the wrong thing. We might get pulled up for it. But that's part of it.
The key is to admit to it, because your honesty and your sincerity is what keeps your audience. If they think you're BSing them, they're going to walk away.
Yeah.
So much wisdom and so much experience here, Charlotte.
Oh God, yeah. I feel like a baby a little bit on this panel at the moment. I think, but the other thing is, you're not to take it too seriously, which probably sounds a bit daft when you say it out loud. But actually, if you just think of it as you're talking either about something you love or a show you love, or like whether it's Thursdays with you guys or the podcasts, I see it as just I'm talking with a load of my friends, or like family. It's become more family now for me, and you just have to see it like that. You almost have to forget you're on screen a little bit, and you're technically putting it out to people.
I feel just the same, Charlotte. I feel exactly the same way about you.
If you think about it too much, I think that's when you start to second guess yourself and you start to overanalyze what you're doing. Whereas if you just think, I'm just talking with friends, or I'm talking about my show that I love to talk about, it just comes across better.
That's what I was saying earlier. You know, you could. It's like you're talking to a friend. I could talk to someone on the phone. But I have fun. I have more people on the phone. It's like a party line, my podcast. You have fun.
Party lines? What happened to party lines?
I don't know. That's been gone for a while. But, you have your discussion. You have fun. And your enthusiasm and everything you're talking about puts people who are listening like your enthusiasm. They like when you talk about things they like and get into the conversation a lot. At least I feel
they're certainly enjoying it so far in the live chat. There are lots of comments. People happy to see you all here, enjoying the conversation so far. Keep the comments and questions coming as well, everybody. We're going to come back to the conversation about content creation of the past, the present, and the future of it a little later on, and that well of love for Doctor Who, obviously, that we all have in our hearts that keeps us gassing on and on and on and on. But time for something hot and sweet now, though.
I'm Leela, over 17, and you should watch Type 40.
No, not her. These. Any donut fans on the panel this evening? Can we do a show of hands who likes a donut?
Yay!
Yeah,
I'll take them all.
How can you not like flour, sugar, and water? How do you
Exactly.
I like them, Mark, but I do stay away from them. They're terrible with my routine, with the running and the lifting and everything else. So it's only every now and again, sort of Christmases and birthdays and things like that. And that Krispy Kreme thing that you see in the shopping precinct, have to walk straight past those, Simon.
No, I can't walk past them. I just can't. Can we not get the show sponsored by Krispy Kreme donuts? Come on, Krispy Kreme. Just send us donuts. I promise you, Krispy Kreme, if you're watching this, I promise if you send us donuts, we will eat them live on the show every Thursday. I guarantee that.
By that logic, we should be Jaffa Cake sponsored ages ago. The amount of times it gets
that's a really good point. You may be wondering why I'm asking you about donuts, Mark.
Why are you asking us about donuts?
Why are you asking us about donuts? Why?
Well, because this being Doctor Who, the Doctor Who universe, of course there are Doctor Who donuts now. Have you seen these on social media? So this came my way through my feed this week. So this is a whole range of Doctor Who themed donuts that are available. So you can take your pick there. So you could go for the Sonic Screwdriver, the Lime Lord, the police
see what
box,
they did there.
a Weeping Angel, Toby, or Bad Wolf there, which is kind of blood red. So which one?
I don't want to eat anything that's got the word weeping in it.
yeah, I see what you mean.
I want to know why why is the Sonic Blue Driver green and yellow? That's what I can't understand.
No, that's the one underneath. That's the one underneath, I think, Simon.
No,
the police box.
Police box is clearly like a police box. Yeah,
on the top. Sonic Screwdriver's on the top.
Maybe once you mix green and yellow, you will get blue. No, you don't. No, hold on. You mix blue and yellow, and you get green, don't you? Oh, I don't know. I'm confusing myself now.
I'm likely to go for whichever one has got some lemon in there, Charlotte. How about you?
See, I'm not a donut person. I'm probably the only one on the panel.
Well, I'll have yours, Joe. Then that's fine, Charlotte. I'm okay. I'll eat yours.
Simon.
Now, obviously, this is all deliberately aimed at the more corpulent of Doctor Who fans that could be out there. This fantastic array of themed donuts. You can get your face full of these. This is at the Donut Hole. This is on East Douglas Avenue in Wichita in the United States. It looks so assuming from the outside. There's no signs of the geekiness, the tasty geekiness that lies within, Ken.
Well, there is. Hold on. Look what's on the roof. Look what's on the roof.
It's a big cock.
Well, no, but wait
say no more.
But what is it? Oh, yeah. But what does a geek? What did Carney Geek do? They bite the heads off of.
What? You've lost me there, pal.
A geek is a circus performer who bit the head off of chickens.
Okay.
What?
So there's a chicken or a cock, whatever, up there. That's why it's a geek place.
Oh, you could be right.
I'm putting it out there. I have no idea. But yeah, that's what a geek is. That's the actual definition of a geek.
Whoa, really? Yeah, I'm slightly disturbed by that.
I'm reeling. Yeah. Even Toby didn't know that fantastic fact, did you?
No, I didn't. No,
you could do a whole podcast
every
on
day
that
as a
one,
school day. I will.
I know you will.
Repurpose that content, buddy. Yes, so if it could be a bit of a trek for us here, Toby, to get over there to Wichita to sample one of these. But which one? You've been very careful in choosing there.
I think I'm probably with you. I do like a donut, and in fact, I have to be very careful because I very much flirt with being on the more corpulent end, and as I get older, it's harder to shake off. But I like you, Dan, I think I would have something a bit sort of. I'd probably go for the Lime Lord, something a bit sharpy, citrusy. I think to contrast with the sort of doughy goodness, whereas chocolatey feels to me sort of doubles down on it. So I'd cut through it with a bit of lime. I'll have the Lime Lord, please, and presumably when I take a bite out of it, it will regenerate and grow a new bit. The
everlasting donut. I like that.
Brilliant.
only one way to find out. Get yourself to the Donut Hole in Wichita in the United States. Obviously, anybody in Wichita who's sampled the goods there at the Donut Hole, get in touch. Leave us a comment. Obviously, after you've left them a review, and go over and find the Donut Hole and tell them that Type 40 Live has sent you as well. By all means. What next? Yeah, this is Type 40 Live across YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X. Just getting warmed up. Really talking food and drink, as always. Food and drink and weather and all that good stuff. But this time, our focus is on Doctor Who Podcast Day. That's on Friday, the 9th of August this year, 2024. And yes, so even the Time Lords themselves have been out in support of Doctor Who Podcast Day there, Ken. What a great picture.
Oh yeah, that's from Chicago TARDIS, and actually, I dug this out as I was moving around. I made a hardback one, like a frame.
I say
that I can have at LI Who this year. So I'll get a few people to take some pictures with it. So that should be fun.
Wonderful stuff. Well, that's perfect. Segue into a plug, really. Yeah, so you talk about Long Island Who. It's not too far away this year. Is it just a few weeks away from the event?
2 weeks away, yeah.
And I understand that you've got a special discount that's available connected with Doctor Who Podcast Day, have you not?
So, we just announced that on our social media feeds for Doctor Who Podcast Day. It is $19 off either a 3-day weekend pass, general admission pass, or the Sunday pass, which actually probably makes it half price to come just on the Sunday. And you use DWPD 2024 as the discount code when you purchase your pass. It's only good starting at midnight, just after midnight tonight. So all day Friday for 24 exact hours Eastern time. If you'd like to join us. And it's only good for new purchases, because I know a bunch of people right now are going, can I get my $19 back? And unfortunately, this is something we never do. We don't do discount codes. But you know what? It's Doctor Who Podcast Day, and I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Good.
Ken, the show that we're dropping tomorrow, we have a cold opening for you. We promote you guys and the discount.
Oh, thank you very much.
We never do cold openings. We did a cold opening.
And here's some of the famous faces that are going to be there at Long Island Who this year. So people who want to take advantage of Ken's kind offer there, this is who you can get to hear speak and get something signed. That's how it goes, isn't it, Ken?
Oh yeah. It's recently it's very much like a UK Doctor Who convention. It's small. It caps out no more than 500 people, 500 attendees, and it's got that fun, intimate vibe. It's fan run, so it's not like a giant hockey arena filled with vendors, and doesn't feel like a sci-fi flea market or anything. It's about people meeting their heroes and having a good time, and community and hanging out with each other.
The Doctor Who community coming together across, obviously geographically for something such as that, and with technology as well here for Doctor Who Podcast Day. It's very much in the spirit of the sense of community that Doctor Who Podcast Day was founded in. So yeah, it's a fabulous thing. And again, there's a link to everybody's websites and offers and everything in the show notes, the description to the video as well. So go right there to pick up on any of the things that we've talked about here on Type 40 Live so far. And yes, we're live streaming to Rumble, X, YouTube, and to Facebook too here at Type 40 Live as always. But if you want some more of us, you can head over to our home feed at type40.podbean.com. That's where you'll find our back catalogue of reviews, previews, interviews, geek outs, and deep dives there with Charlotte and Simon and Sarah and Stephen Noonan and various other people that we have on, and lots and lots of variety of content there, including that Space Babies review, about to be joined by our own episode just for Doctor Who Podcast Day. So yes, this is dropping tomorrow. It is our very own Mount Rushmore of Doctor Who, Mount Who. So myself, Simon, Charlotte, and Sarah all get together and we choose which Doctor Who faces we would have carved into the granite there if Mount Rushmore all of a sudden was dedicated completely to our favourite TV show. We had a great time recording that just a few nights ago, didn't we, guys?
We did. Yeah, it's fantastic fun.
And I think we all had little surprises, which was nice.
Yeah, we did. We shocked each other. And I still think it looks like William Hartnell at the first position and Paul McGann on the second position.
Paul McGann is the
and
second.
Patrick Troughton on the fourth position. It's definitely, it's already a Doctor Who.
It's already done. It's already done.
And then the brig, I said.
And the brig, that's right. The brig is number 3. It is.
There you go.
So look out for that, about to join us here on the Type 40 YouTube channel there with that special episode for Doctor Who Podcast Day, and that'll be across all major podcatchers as well as at type40.podbean.com. So keep an eye out for all of that. Okay, where to next? Let's check out a few things. Okay, I know. Let's have a bit of this.
That makes me chortle.
Yes, we're arm in arm here for Type 40 Live, your live stream mix of news, views, nostalgia, discussion, and banter. And as deep and dark as a lot of those rabbit holes can sometimes get, we always bring the white pills, don't we? And this time is no different. This little stash comes bound in leather and carefully dispensed by my friend Simon Horton here. It must be the Doctor Who Diary.
Yes, indeed it is. It's the diary. Welcome to the Doctor Who Diary. And if you're new here, there are 3 new faces in our panel this evening, and
you're gonna like this, boys.
Yeah, there are some new names in the chat as well. So welcome to this week's diary. If you are new here and you've not seen the diary before, this is when we fire up the TARDIS data bank and we spin the old time rotor and we take a look back over the decades at some of the happenings in the world of Who. On this occasion, clearly in the first week of August. And I'll for those who are new this evening on our panel, I'm going to spin you some stuff, but please feel free to chip in, ask questions, correct me. I always get corrected, people in the chat. I throw in these deliberate mistakes, Toby. I deliberately throw in deliberate mistakes so that people like you, I know you'll correct me on some of this because you're far cleverer on this stuff than I am. I'm in no doubt at all.
Are you ready, Crickling? You're usually one.
So do feel free to correct me. Tonight in tonight's diary, we're actually going to learn about how we lost not 1 but 2 doctors this week in years gone by. But first, you might be wondering, I'm sure you are wondering, Ken, about what episodes are screening this week in the past. Haven't got time to talk about them, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about what you were missing in years gone by in the first week of August. Now, we talked a few weeks ago about the summer repeats. You will remember these, Toby, I know, the famous summer repeats that we all loved. So this week in years gone by, you would have been watching repeats of The Deadly Assassin, Destiny of the Daleks, Full Circle, Earthshock. All these were being repeated this week in years gone by. Only 2 new episodes were premiering this week in years gone by. Toby, you're a clever boy. Do you want to even hazard a guess at what the 2 episodes were what the 2 stories were that were premiering this week? I might leave it out there if anybody in the chat can get it. We're not going to talk about them, sadly. There's no time. Do you want to have a go, Toby?
No, I'm terrible at dates. August.
First week of August. I'll give you a year. I will give you the year. It was, as I say, only 2 episodes. One was 66. Sorry, I'm going to start that again. One was 64 and one was 68. There we go. 2 episodes screening in this week, years gone by. I'll leave it out there. Have a little think about it. Because sadly, we have no time to talk about them. But it's a bit of fun anyway. But here's the thing. And I am going to wait and see if anybody... No, the Crimpling Doubloon, it wasn't the Gunfighters. I'm sorry. Try again. What we are going to do, we're going to set the coordinates for the first week of August 1966. And this week actually is particularly timey-wimey in years gone by in 1966 in particular for reasons that will be covered very apparent. There was actually a lot going on this week in 1966. First of all, on Monday, just gone, it would have been exactly 58 years since Dalek's invasion of 2150 AD premiered at your local ABC cinema. That was back in on the 5th of August 1966. That was the Dalek's invasion of Earth, the second Cushing movie was premiering. Now, coincidentally, there we go, beautiful. There we are. Like it's like we planned these things, Dan. Look at that. So yeah, that one was just screening, I say, for the first time this week in 66. Now, coincidentally, also in 66, there was a very big announcement about William Hartnell this week, but it was actually preceded by something else a couple of weeks ago. So the end of July 1966, William Hartnell was appearing at the Royal Naval Air Station at Culdrose in Helston in Cornwall. And here we go. The photo on the left is actually from Finningley Air Display in September 65. We can't, sadly, find any photos from Culdrose itself. If anybody has any out there, please do send them in. Crimpling Doubloon in the chat, you got it right with the Reign of Terror and
Censorites. So Daryl got it right. Censorites.
The Reign of Terror. There we go. I'll go through it. Censorites. No, it's not the Censorites. It's not Planet of Giants.
That the last episode. The last episode of the Censorites. Wasn't that on in August?
That was last week. I'm afraid.
August 8th. August 8th.
But anyway,
we've got pretty much every Hartnell story has been named in the live chat there across YouTube and Rumble, Facebook, and X.
Okay, I'm going to cheat here. A Desperate Venture, the 6th and final episode of the Censorites debuted on BBC One on August 1st.
Oh, okay, they did a week ago.
August 8th would be A Land of Fear from Reign of Terror. Yeah,
correct, spot on. It was indeed the Reign of Terror, which was screening today in 1964, so exactly 60 years ago. But we're not talking about that. And also, Daryl Joyce, you've also got it correct on the other episode, which was the Dominators. The Dominators episode 1 started screening in 1968, the year I was born. That was screening in 68. But anyway, enough of that madness. Back at Culdrose. As I say, William Hartnell was appearing at Culdrose. The Daleks invaded. There is the advert on the right-hand side, proudly presenting Mr. William Hartnell as Doctor Who.
So wish I could go.
The Daleks invaded as well. Hartnell apparently emerged from a TARDIS that had been set up on a little stage, and he announced the start of the flying displays. So it was all very, very exciting. And I said the Daleks were there, they invaded, and they were also on a ride that was whizzing around. There is some video footage out there that exists of the Daleks scooting around Culdrose, but sadly, no footage of Hartnell. But, and here's the thing, what nobody realised at the time this was going to be the very last ever public appearance of William Hartnell as the Doctor. We would never see him in public as the Doctor again after that appearance at the end of July in 1966, because sadly worn down from the challenging schedule and arteriosclerosis, he had agreed to leave the show the week before, so 58 years ago in mid-July, under pressure from BBC bosses.
Wow.
He went to RF Culdrose the day after he recorded his the penultimate episode of what would ultimately be his penultimate adventure, which was The Smugglers, which coincidentally was also set in Cornwall, which, as I say, is where he scooted off down to Culdrose. So even though he had handed his resignation, he still stuck to the contract and went down and did the Royal Naval Base at Culdrose.
Bless him.
And then sadly, 2 weeks later, on the 6th of August, 1966, so just literally 2 days ago, back on Tuesday, the news broke, and there it is on the left-hand side, the news broke that William Hartnell, the original Doctor who at the time was the only Doctor Who nobody had even considered that it would ever be.
It's hard to imagine now, isn't it?
It's impossible to imagine, but at that point, it was announced that Doctor Who was quitting. And William Hartnell only sort of gave one quote, which was, I think 3 years and one part is a good inning, and it's time for a change. And the press were already claiming at that point that he was going to be replaced, that it wasn't the end for Doctor Who. but that he was going to be replaced by another actor. And so I find it particularly sad with that sort of the appearance at the at Culdrose at the naval station. He did a lot. Hartnell did quite a few of these public appearances, which is why there is the footage out there of him being driven around.
Did the press used to get tipped off about things like this, like actors leaving TV shows and stuff, the way they do now? You know, we hear the word leaks a lot. Russell T Davies has been venting about leaks in SFX magazine this very week. Did things leak then? Was TV fodder for newspapers way back in the mid-60s?
Well, I think it was still fodder for the papers. It was still a way of filling column inches, but I don't think it got leaked back in those days. There was literally just a press release put out, and that
wasn't so sensational. It was just like whatever will be, will be. This has happened. That person's doing this or that or the other.
It was far more down to earth, I think, in those days. But I do find it really, really sad that, as I say, Hartnell at that appearance at Culdrose, he would have known at that point. He did know. He'd handed his resignation in 3 weeks before. He knew he was leaving. He knew he was gone. He knew his time was limited. He'd only got literally about half a dozen more episodes to record before he was gone. And gosh, you just feel so sorry for him because, of course, he didn't want to leave. He was, I don't think it would be fair to say that he was pushed, but it was decided that he couldn't carry on, and he obviously reluctantly agreed to it. And I just think that's, you know, it's sad to think that he was going, and he knew that he was going, and
I know that it's fashionable to say everything has its time, everything ends, and all those kind of Stephen Moffatisms that we hear now. But it is sad. He was only 59, and this had been arguably, I think, I know the Army game had been a success, but this was pretty much the part of his lifetime. I get the impression it was, Toby. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's what you discover when you get older. It's a bit like when you find out about Santa Claus. Is that, you know, if you
what about Santa Claus?
I'm not going to say no spoilers here. So I'm not
thank God.
But you go through old convention panels, as I sometimes do. You know, looking for footage for documentaries and stuff, and all the old fans ask people who used to be involved with Doctor Who, even if it's like William Ems, who wrote one story. Is like, what do you think of it now? With the hope that they go, it's not as good now as it went when I was on it. And would you come back? And there's always this desire to sort of bring the past back, because I think, you know, my view was that anybody that left Doctor Who had sort of done through of their own volition, and they'd gone on to other things. You know, it's only when you become a 50-year-old. Well, no, we discover this a lot, but it's only as you sort of go through life that you discover. Actually, most people who left Doctor Who did so because show business is largely awful, and pretty unfair, and you know, didn't necessarily do it through choice. Sometimes it's personality clashes, sometimes it's just time for a change. But for whatever reason, you know, most people in this business actually don't get to choose. You know, when they get to leave a job or what they do. You know, it's like you naively say to an actor, "What attracted you to that role?" It's like, well, the fact that that it was a job. You know, anything beyond
the mortgage
is probably a lie. But that you know, it took us ages to discover that. You know, Pertwee just finally said, didn't he, in an interview, and I just stayed, but I asked for a bit more money and they said no, and I kind of okay. And Tom Baker sort of said, well, I was only sort of testing them really, but John Nathan Turner wanted a new show. So I think, you know, it was Troughton's choice. I think it was Davison's choice, but that's 2 out of those first 7 really who chose, you know, and most of the companions, turns out that they, you know, it was largely a contract not being renewed because shows like Doctor Who thrive on change. I interviewed David Weston, who's Birrock in Warriors Gate, and he's in The Massacre as well. And he's an actor's actor, and he's been in everything. He's worked for the RSC, and he said acting is really quite, and it's always stuck with me. And he's a guy that's always worked. He said, you know, acting is actually quite a sad profession. because it is largely being told to, even if you don't get the job, you're being told to sod off, and if you do get the job, they eventually tell you to sod off.
And of course, the thing is with Hartnell, they tried to get rid of him before this as well. You know, this has been rumbling on for a while that they wanted to get rid of him, poor bloke, because of the fact that he was struggling with his lines. His health wasn't good. His wife wanted him to give it up. So you know, he'd been on a knife edge for a while. But that photo on the right there, you know, I say he did a lot of these appearances. He embraced the role. He would appear in, as he is doing there, in full costume. Same as Pertwee always did. Pertwee would always appear in full costume pretty much wherever he appeared as the Doctor. And Hartnell was the same.
Would call it his regular clothes.
Yes. Yeah. And this is the thing with Hartnell. He loved the role so much, and so you feel for him that day when he knew he was basically, that was it. It was time to finally give in and stop the fight. Must have been heartbreaking for him. And of course, it's just odd to think of it now that, as I say, in those days there was no such thing as regeneration. There was no such thing as the thought that he might be replaced, because people weren't really replaced in those days. They weren't. Actors were not replaced in characters. If an actor went, that was the end of that. Whereas, of course,
the momentum of the show, though, Simon, back then, and the fact they made it through the majority of the year, you know, his wife, his whole family, they would have immediately noticed this massive change in the pace of his own life.
Yeah, absolutely. Go on, Charlotte.
I thought that for especially the earlier actors, it must have been a bit odd to go from being mainly either a theatre person, where you only would really have the face-to-face aspect, maybe after the show if you were at the door, but it was still mainly on stage, and you'd get the instant feedback. All these people who had just mainly done some TV work at that point, that Doctor Who must have been so weird for them to then suddenly do these public appearances when they were maybe just used to going from job to job to job to job, and not having that sort of people outside reacting and being like, you're the Doctor, and like turning up and having crowds the way they did. I've always thought that must have been a bit of a oddity for the earlier Doctors. Now it's more normal for shows to have that. But back then, it must have been a bit of a getting used to it, especially for the more traditional actors.
And it was such a punishing schedule as well. And of course, that's why Patrick Troughton left ultimately, because of the schedule. It was just such a punishing schedule, and that's how William Hartnell was. So yeah, as I say, it's sort of a sad anniversary this week, because this week back in '66, we in effect lost the first ever Doctor, William Hartnell. But moving on, I said that we lost 2 Doctors this week in years gone by, and we did indeed. Because because very, very sadly, it's because we quite literally lost the living legend that still is Peter Cushing. Sadly, Peter Cushing died in 1994, exactly 30 years ago on Sunday, aged 81.
I remember this, Simon. I remember this news breaking.
I remember this very clearly, because I just loved, I still love Peter Cushing. I worship the ground he walks on. He's just one of the best actors we've ever had. And I grew up on the sort of double horror bill that used to go on. I think they used to put them on BBC Two, and they were also on ITV. And there will be the double horror bill where the second one was, the first one was always a rubbish black and white one, and the second one was normally a brilliant hammer one. So you had to stop up. I was only about 10 at the time, but I would stop up till sort of midnight to watch Dracula or The Curse of Frankenstein or The Mummy or whatever it was with Peter Cushing. And so I just grew to absolutely love Peter Cushing. So yeah, sadly we lost him this week. 30 years ago. He was born, a little bit of background, he was born in Surrey in 1913. He trained at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama. He has, get this, he has 131 credits listed to his name on IMDb. 131 credits. What this man didn't do. In 1939, he actually moved to Hollywood, and his film debut was in the same year in a James Whale production, The Man in the Iron Mask. Of course, James Whale had done some of the Universal, the big Universal horror.
James
films.
Whale from Dudley, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. He did Frankenstein. He did The Curse of Frankenstein. And also Peter Cushing was in then A Chump at Oxford the following year, which was that was I think the first time I ever saw him. That was in it was the Laurel and Hardy film. He's in A Chump at Oxford. That was shot in Hollywood. He then moved back to England, and one of his big things once he moved back to England was one of his first major television roles was playing Winston Smith in the live BBC production of 1984.
Yeah, I've seen
which was screened in 1954, as I say, live. I don't even know. Does that still exist, Toby? Do you happen to know? Does that?
It does. Because it's part of my my Quatermass work, because it was adapted by Nigel Neal, who did Quatermass, and it was produced by Rudolph Cartier. So that's quite heavily featured in my my next Quatermass book, because it was came between Quatermass Experiment and Quatermass 2, and so they have the second. As you know, it was performed twice live, and they recorded the second one for posterity.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
There's a lovely restored BFI release, because they kept the film negative, so the pre-filmed stuff of Winston wandering around and some of the stuff in Room 101, which was done on film, looks like it was made yesterday, and then they've got the rest of the live stuff as studio. It's great, yeah.
And is there any
Darren Bradley says Darren Bradley says, Simon, watching on YouTube, one of the most kindly gentlemen to ever grace the screen.
Do you know, it's interesting you say that. Carrie Fisher, who of course played opposite him in Star Wars. By the way, he was considered for the role of Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars before he was given the role of the brilliant Grand Moff Tarkin.
He's fabulous in that.
Seriously, he's the best thing about Star Wars, I think. And I love Star Wars. Don't get me wrong, I love every stitch of Star Wars, but he is the best thing about it, and I forever regret George Lucas killing him off at the end of it, because he really should have come back in can you imagine him in The Empire Strikes Back? He was perfect for the darkness of The Empire Strikes Back.
Well, they did digitally bring him back for that Rogue One movie, didn't they? Yeah, they
did, and it was horrible. It didn't look like him. It didn't sound like him. It was ghastly. But as I say, Carrie Fisher, who played opposite him, found it very difficult to act with him, because he was so polite and so charming that she just found it hard, apparently, to project the sense of disdain that she had to have for this obnoxious, dislikable character, and she just couldn't do it. And of course, it wasn't helped by the fact that he famously wore carpet slippers throughout all of his scenes, because he couldn't wear the Nazi boots that he'd been given because they were too small. He found them uncomfortable, so he wore carpet slippers, which is why you almost always see him from the waist up in Star Wars, because he's wearing his carpet. I mean,
I didn't know that.
Only Peter Cushing would get away with wearing carpet slippers on the Death Star.
It's sort of like the equivalent if an actor nowadays had Crocs on, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely is. And he just was the consummate gentleman, by all accounts. I never got to meet him. Anybody here meet him? I never did. No. But I understand that he was just one of the nicest people you could ever hope to meet. He's the first Hammer film that he did was in 1957, The Curse of Frankenstein, and then of course in 1958 that was the big breakthrough, because that was Dracula, again dualongside Christopher Lee. He and Christopher Lee were the absolute best of friends. Not before they started Hammer, but during their time on Hammer, they became literally the best of friends. They did 24 films together, and they did end up the best of friends. The irony of it is they've even got the same birth date as each other, and indeed Vincent Price. They all have the same birthday, which is there's something in the stars on that particular day.
It's meant to be.
It was.
Well, you know,
Peter Cushing, and we'll come to a minute why we're talking about Peter Cushing, but Peter Cushing, as an aside, also made 4 films, of course, with Patrick Troughton, 2 of them for Hammer, The Gorgon and Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell.
I'll have to watch those.
Yeah, the Monster from Hell in particular is a cracking film. And, of course, he also did productions for Amicus, one of which is From Beyond the Grave, which I still maintain is the greatest portmanteau horror film of all time. If anybody has not watched From Beyond the Grave, that is my tip. Find From Beyond the Grave and watch that. And in 1971, Horror Express, which was for a Spanish production.
Oh, yeah,
again,
I've seen that.
Just a brilliant film. But of course, the reason we're talking about him is because famously, of course, he played the part of Doctor Who, and we are going to be precise there, it was very much Doctor Who, in the 2 Dalek films. There we go, Doctor Who and the Daleks, and Daleks Invasion of 2150 AD. The first one released in 65, and the second one released in 1966. As I say, literally this week in 66.
Lovely films.
Yeah, I love them. Apparently, allegedly, he actually didn't really enjoy playing the part of the Doctor in the Dalek films.
Oh, it's a shame.
Yeah, which is a shame. I don't know why. I don't know whether he's ever sort of gone on record as to why, but yeah. And of course, William Hartnell, bless him, and this is the bitterest of ironies, of course. William Hartnell was upset not to have been asked. I mean, the schedule would have undoubtedly made it completely impossible for him to do it.
Oh, it's a shame.
He was still upset to be asked, and of course, this is where it all gets timey-wimey. Because here's Dalek's Invasion of Earth, being released this week, the exact same week that the announcement is made that William Hartnell is leaving the role. So there's just an awful irony to all of this. You're going to like this one. Here's my fact of the day. He was a keen amateur florist, was Peter Cushing, and so he contributed the name Lilium Philadelphicum to the flower that Susan discovers on Skaro. You knew that, didn't you, Toby?
No, I knew about the florist thing because he's on an episode of Jim will Fix It.
I saw that as well.
Where he gets a rose named after, because he never got over the death of his wife.
Correct.
And he gets a rose named the Heather Cushing rose. I remember that. I only saw it at the time, but it made such an impression on me that this lovely old chap who was this actor,
yes,
I knew things, sort of writes Jim Six, and it says something like, I don't know if your program caters for septuagenarians or something like that, but I'd like a rose named after my wife. And I just thought that was so.
And I don't know whether you remember it, Toby, but it is a beautiful film. They do this little film with it, and it's beautifully shot around where he lived. I think it was Whitstable, Kent. Something tells me it was Whitstable.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful little film. And yeah, you're right. Because apparently his wife died in 1971. He never got over her death. You're quite right, Toby. He never recovered. Horror Express, which, as I say, is a film I highly recommend, seriously, for anybody that hasn't seen it. Go out, find it. That one was the first film he made after her death, and apparently he nearly didn't go through with it. He arrived on set and said, "I just can't do this." And it's Christopher Lee that finally talked him into it and said, "No, this is the best thing you can do to sort of help you get over the loss of your wife." But again, going back to Roberta Tovey, Peter Cushing only agreed to do Daleks 2150 AD as long as Roberta Tovey returned to the role, because he got on so well with Roberta Tovey, which is rather sweet. And apparently he was blue-eyed as Peter Cushing, and apparently he was very fond of wearing blue items in his costume to bring out the highlight in his eyes. Hence, that's why the Doctor, certainly I think it's in the first film, isn't he? He wears a pale blue scarf. There we go, and a cravat. There we go.
Must be psychic, Simon.
You see, we just don't throw these together, Dan. And I'm sure he was delighted with the blue lights that were in the background there as well, because I think those probably brought out the best of his in his eyes as well. So as I say, of course, he's most famous to Doctor Who fans for playing Doctor Who in the 2 Dalek movies, which we all love, don't we? Does anybody not love them?
Yeah, no, love them.
Love it.
I mean, I know people that actually came to Doctor Who. Barnaby, who used to be one of our regulars, came to Doctor Who from finding the 2 movies in a charity shop, 10 years ago.
On VHS.
Doctor Who.
Because obviously in Britain, Simon, they still get shown quite regularly on channels like Talking Pictures TV or even Channel 4 and things like that. So they've always been staples of bank holidays, haven't they, Toby?
Yeah.
You know, we've grown up with them being in the circulation.
You were more likely to get the films. The films were more likely to be in circulation than old telly. But that's partially to do with equity agreements, things like that. So yeah, you would. And I remember Weep It because they would show them as a pair, but you'd have to scour the paper. Somebody would have to tell you.
Oh yeah.
And I saw the second one first, and then twice it happened that I discovered the first one had been on, and I'd missed it, and so I saw the second one again. And I remember, I wept actual tears because I was like, well, if it's been on, it's not going to be on for another 3 years, you know.
Yeah.
So it took me ages to actually get a chance to watch the first one, but yeah, the second one I saw a few times, and then got the sell-through video that I think was being chucked out of a rental shop, and so I actually had that with a lovely movie poster. I might have still. Did I keep that? I might have kept that. I don't know. It would be.
I know exactly the one you mean because I had that as well, Toby.
Yeah, and the artwork on it was beautiful.
Yeah,
stunning.
Yeah.
So as I say, that's where we know Peter Cushing from, of course. But you might be surprised to discover he was actually offered, and again, I'm sure, Toby, you will know all about these. He was offered other roles in Doctor Who, or at least considered. Some he was offered, some he was considered.
He was wasn't he offered Barusa or Headin in Arc of Infinity?
Spot on, correct. Cool. Do you want to try for any more? He was offered Barusa.
No idea.
No, what else was he offered?
He was offered. He was offered.
Fendelman in Image of the Fendal. Was he offered?
No, he should have been. I've always said he should have been, absolutely, because it's so Hammer. That is so Hammer. Yeah. No, he was offered the role of Solon in Brain of Morbius.
Oh, yeah.
You know now. Believe it or not, the Monitor in Legopolis. He was considered for the role of the Monitor in Legopolis. He was bizarrely considered for the role of Asmail in the Twin Dilemma. These are all. Most of these you'll notice are John Nathan Turner.
I think John Nathan Turner was very optimistic.
You don't ask, you don't get.
And a bit of a fan, probably.
And a bit of a fan. He tried. It's just a wonder he wasn't offered the role of the mutant in Revelation of the Daleks. But that was a Laurence Olivier.
It's a bugbear of mine when you see on IMDb and it will say something like, for example, that Peter Cushing was considered for the role of Asmail but lost out to Maurice Denham. And you go, no. When you get that list of actors that John Nathan Turner wanted for the role, it wasn't that somebody might have really lost out to somebody else. It's that they might have said bugger off.
They could well have done. I think that's probably the case here. Lord Ravensworth, he was nearly Lord Ravensworth in Mark of the Rani, and this is the one that I would love to have seen. He was almost Dastari in the Two Doctors.
I can imagine that. Yeah,
stunning. But get this. You were right, Toby, that he was offered the role of Barusa in Arc of Infinity. He was also incredibly offered the role of Barusa in the Paul McGann movie. And the only reason he's not in it is because they removed the role. Of course, it got taken out. It was in the Leakley script very early on, but then Barusa was taken out. And so as a result, that was the end of any involvement of Peter Cushing. And it would have been his very, very final film role because he died just after, towards the end of 1994, just after the production of the TV movie. It would have been his last one. But, and here you go, you're going to love this. You're going to love this because, of course, let's not forget, he also played the Doctor in a radio pilot in the mid-60s, which was actually produced between the two Dalek films, and between 1965 and 1966, the two Dalek movies. He played the Doctor in a 21-minute radio pilot that is sadly, obviously now long lost. It was junked when the company that made it closed down, and all of their material was junked tragically. The script is out there for anybody that is interested in this stuff. Nothing at the End of the Lane, which is the brilliant production by Richard Bignall, that has the full script in it. It's long out of print, but if you go on eBay, you would find it. I don't doubt. You'll probably pay a fortune for it. It's worth it. Go on, Toby, yeah?
Haven't I been in a version? I've got a feeling I'm such a terrible whore. I think
somebody
you've done a version of this.
I was just asked to do it, and I said, "Yeah, all right." So I think there's an audio of it out there.
Wow!
I think so, yeah.
Can you remember who you played?
I know for a fact there definitely is an audio of that about, but I had no idea you were in it. So if you were, great.
Well, as I say, to answer Ian Scale's question on screen, did they keep script? Yes, they absolutely did. And as I say, please track down Nothing at the End of the Lane. It is worth it. It'll cost you a bit on eBay, but it's well worth it. It's a fantastic article. And the full script is in there. The full script, as well as photos of the script. But actually, if you can't afford that, DWM, the special edition of DWM that's just come out, has got a 2 or 3 page article on the radio serial the pilot episode as well, because it's in the missing section. Get this, the original plan was it was going to be 52 25-minute episodes, and this is where it begins to get really, really timey-wimey, because in the exact same week that Hartnell was handing in his resignation at the BBC, Peter Cushing was recording the 21-minute pilot that was written by Malcolm Holt the exact same
What a crying
week.
shame.
It arrived, the pilot episode arrived at the BBC the week that Hartnell was appearing at Coldrose. You see, we don't just throw these things together, we think about them. They're carefully
Fabulous stuff,
collated.
Simon. I love shape when it comes to these shows. Thank you so
Don't you love
much.
it? Don't you love it? How does this thing happen? But it's true. All of this was happening this week in 1966. And so, as I say, sadly lost, but you can, out in the shops now, you will find, as I say, the DWM special edition, all on the missing Doctor Who, and there's a 2-page article in there. So, bless him, wrapping up dear old Peter Cushing. Can we ever wrap up dear old Peter Cushing? I don't think we can. We could talk forever. 1989, it's worth noting that he was granted an OBE in 1989, quite rightly too, for his services to production. He was. I'm very proud of the fact that he was a vegetarian, like myself, like you, Dan. I don't know whether we've got any of the veggies on the panel tonight, but he was a proud vegetarian. There we go. Well. 3 veggies, excellent. He was a long life vegetarian, and he was a patron of the Vegetarian Society, so he gets a massive thumbs up in my book. And I'm going to give you my favourite quote from dear old Peter Cushing. He once said, "If I played Hamlet, they'd call it a horror film." And I was just there. They would. You know they would. They would. And this is my favourite little factoid about Peter Cushing. As I say, his very best friend was Christopher Lee. And they were both apparently, of course they were, both huge fans of the Looney Tunes cartoons. Of course they were. These two absolute icons.
Yeah, okay.
Icons of horror. They were massive fans of Looney Tunes cartoons, and apparently on set in rehearsals they would imitate the voices of characters such as Sylvester and Tweety. They'd imitate Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck. They do impersonations to one another of these characters, and apparently this is my favourite bit. Apparently they were once asked to leave a theatre that was showing a Sylvester and Tweety cartoon because they were laughing so much, and they were annoying all the other members of the audience because they were doing the voices between the two of them, themselves laughing. And I like to think that they are up there now in heaven, just laughing away at Looney Tunes cartoons. God bless them. God bless them, both of them.
God bless them, and bless you too as well, Simon, for another fabulous Doctor Who diary. People are loving this in the live chat across YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X.
That was lovely. That was really
Thank you very much. Good. Glad you enjoyed it. I'm just looking at some of these comments. Yeah, the Ghoul, still not available. You still can't get the Ghoul. I think it appears on, doesn't it appear on Talking Pictures or something every so often?
It's
Ghoul
regularly on TV. I know they used to have it on the Horror Channel. Does that still exist? It changed its name, didn't it? It was kicking around for a while.
I think it's called Legend. The station's called Legend now. I think Horror Channel changed to Legend.
Yes, of course it is. They show a lot of action stuff as well now, don't they? I love the Hammer House film, says Simon Ashley.
Yeah.
Simon, and we've got lots more questions. Vanessa is reeling from the revelation that you're vegetarian. Sorry
to shock anybody. You got 3 veggies here. You've got 3 veggies here, Vanessa.
What a great fact to close the diary for this week. Again, Simon, thank you for yet another brilliant edition of the Doctor Who diary. Then, if anybody's got any comments for any of that, any memories that you've been kicked up, then by all means drop them in the comments section, and we'll get back to you as well. Okay, let's have a blast of this. Oh, sorry, mate. And now, is it possible, Mark, for a Doctor Who fan to have enough nostalgia? I don't think it is. But if you're feeling the call of nature, maybe the seal is about to break, here's your chance. Whilst the rest of us feel a different kind of warm and tingly sensation, as golden voices and golden faces take us on a trek all the way back through telly decades in the past, where Doctor Who legends sold us bits of old crap, really. So here's the Type 40 Live Doctor Who ad break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Introducing Quirks. Different because the chocolate's on the inside, not the out, and the outside's on the inside, not the in. So they're possibly the first ever inside-out, back-to-front mints. Don't be backward in coming forward to try them. They're delicious. Whether you're uncleaning the windows, fixing your upmake, or just putting your best foot backwards, the delicious taste makes the fly simply time fly. New Quirks, possibly the first inside-out, back-to-front mints. Try some yesterday.
I wonder what can be keeping him. Pardon, Your Excellency, but the people, they grow restless.
But my sunglasses! I can't find them! Where are my sunglasses?
Major Mondo, we haven't heard of missing sunglasses to find. Perhaps I should inform the people that His Excellency is unavoidably detained.
Foster-grant sunglasses seem to do strange things for some people. Put on a pair and they seem to have just a little more self-confidence, a little more power.
I did hear, Gareth, that Nescafe is an original.
And absolutely exclusive.
It certainly is. Absolutely exclusive. Yes. The special blend and roast that gives you the richer, smoother Nescafe taste. Absolutely exclusive, Peter. In this one jar.
And nowhere else.
Just in this jar, eh? What a shame they only made the one.
Absolutely exclusive. Because Nescafe don't make coffee for anyone else.
Mrs. Turner, identify these pictures.
Bacon meaty in a rich sauce. Brains faggots. Oh, they're double faggot burgers. Rice with pineapple cubes. Sweet and sour faggots.
Hi. What other good food costs so little and lets you do so much? And here's your prize.
Use your brains. Save money.
Oh, bless William Russell. Oh, that's the first time I've seen that since he passed away. Yes, welcome back. Oh, God, they're at it again. Look. Yes, so here we are once again back here with Type 40 Live across YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and on X2. So we've got a specially invited panel here of seasoned and sensational content creators to mark Doctor Who Podcast Day, which is tomorrow or maybe today, depending on where you are in the world. I've got Simon Horton here, the Natalie-dressed Simon Horton, as always. Charlotte Shields over the other side of him. We've got Mark Baumgarten here from Mark Who, who's 42's Universe, and Mark Who 77. It's all the numbers. We've got Toby Hadoke here as well, the Doctor Who podcasting, just Doctor Who legend generally, and we've got Ken Deep as well, OG Doctor Who podcaster and the master of all things Long Island Who. We've been having a cracking conversation so far and digging into the trivia, having a bit of banter and looking at some donuts as well. So because, well, why not? We've got our live chat full of further comments here about all sorts of things. People asking about rights issues with old Hammer movies and all sorts of other bits of trivia that people are kicking up. Crimpling Doubloon is giving us watching recommendations for Talking Pictures TV. So we know there's Peter Cushing films on there all the time. So thank you, everybody. Keep those comments coming.
Yeah, nothing turns me on more than discussing rights issues to have.
Yeah, the chicks love it, mate. They lap it up, trust me.
almost as much as I like discussing how many views Disney Plus gets on Doctor Who lately.
Yeah, that's rather a circular discussion. It has to be said, isn't it? Fortunately, this is Type 40 Live, where we cover the past, the present, and the future of all things Doctor Who on and off screen across all those places, those platforms. And we're here for Doctor Who podcast day. Okay, so here we all are. It's happening again. We're all suited and booted and on the right side of sober for now. I don't know about them.
For now.
For now. Yes. So yeah, here we are. We're all ready. We've got our all presents. That's it. You can always rely on the Doctor Who dogs. There's been a Doctor Who fandom for almost as long as there's been Doctor Who, hasn't there? I mean, we've said before, haven't we, Simon, that our friend, the late great Ian McLaughlin, he was arguably the very first Doctor Who fan. We miss him terribly. Of course we do. He passed away nearly 2 years ago now. Heaven knows what he'd make of the emoji age that we're in now, where instantaneously and globally, maybe even extra dimensionally, all these sort of interactions between Doctor Who fans, wherever we are, about every passing thought, be they be ratings, just as you were saying, Ken, or something a little bit more creative, we can immediately put them out there, can't we, in whatever form that we like. It could just be in text form, or it could be this kind of stuff where we rattle on for hours and hours and hours. You'd think we'd get it out of our systems by now, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you, Mark? I don't know. But thing is, if we did get it out of our systems and sort of get on with the rest of our days and the rest of our lives, I don't know whether any of our lives would be better off for it. I mean, I'm quite a mouthy person anyway. There's always something to get my teeth stuck into. But when it comes to Doctor Who, my heart is really, really in it. And I think it's the heart of Doctor Who fans, the hearts of fans of anything, really. You mentioned earlier on, Toby, about the breadth of podcasting. You can find a podcast about just about anything. And it's something you really have to sort of pour your heart into. And this is why I've come to the conclusion that really, the true heart of Doctor Who does sort of, I think it belongs to the fandom. You know, the BBC, they can have the rights or whatever, the intellectual property rights. Well, we can let them have that. The real heart of Doctor Who, I feel, does belong to the fan base. What are your thoughts about that, Mark?
No, I agree. Like I was saying, I think it was before the show. My show used to be Mark Who 42's Whoniverse. I mean, if I was going to do intellectual property and stuff, no, we didn't have it first. But no, I think shows do belong to the fans. I really do. In fact, at the San Diego Comic-Con during the panel, someone asked if Scream of the Shalka was canon, and Russell said it's canon to you. If it's canon to you, then it's canon. So,
yeah, it's very personal. I think that's the whole point about it. It is very personal. We all accept what we don't want to, what we want to, and take out what we don't. And you sift it through and you take out. But that's one of the things I love about Doctor Who so much, is there's just so much Doctor Who. You can take what you want, you can leave what you don't like, and that's why I just get a bit frustrated when people sort of get antsy with people that don't like certain bits of Doctor Who. It doesn't matter. It is literally pick and mix. There's bits for everybody to enjoy in there, and just enjoy the bits that you like. That's what it's about.
I couldn't agree more. And here at Type 40 Live, we talk about it for hours and hours on end. And it really, I think there can't be many aspects of it we haven't talked about, or at least danced around, Charlotte. But then something else comes up, something unexpected that's either been gathering dust for a little while, just like that radio pilot, or it can be something else that's just gone on under our radars and we've always meant to talk about, but there's never been the right occasion. Eventually it does crop up, doesn't it?
Yeah, because what I love about Doctor Who is it's not one singular thing. And that's why my sort of thing that I get a bit annoyed at is when people say, oh, it's just a show. Why are you getting so why are you getting so emotional? Why are you getting so worked up at times? It's just a TV show. I think we've all heard that at some point on this panel. And you just sort of, as a fan, you sort of want to just sort of shout back, no, it's not, because it lives beyond that. And I think that's what you mean by the fans then. Is that we watch this show, or we listen to it, or we read it, or however way we consume it. And then it lives in our heads. And I think for me, I've said this before, I'm quite an emotional person when it comes to TV I like. So Doctor Who has got quite an emotional sort of tether to me, that there's certain scenes that I've watched them about 100 times, but I will cry every time I watch that. I talked about that.
But it's one thing. It's one thing to internalize that, though, isn't it? But you've got to tell. So it's nice to share it with someone.
Well, yeah, because also then you can connect about stories. I remember when we did that one a while ago about confessions and talking about the personal side.
Yeah.
And I spoke about how, because Matt was, because the 11th Doctor was my doctor and he meant so much to me, that I really struggled watching the final episode and that regeneration. And now it's almost, every time I watch it, it's still a bit sore for me. And people in the chat were like, "Oh, I'm not the only one then that still gets like that watching." Who also Matt was
Charlotte, I still get choked up watching Caves of Androzani. That was on 40 years ago.
Yeah,
me too. And Legopolis, the end of Legopolis, still gets to me every time.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to live forever, and that's why they can do what they want within reason in the show, but our memories and what we think is just going to live beyond that.
Yeah.
And I think we'll pass it on as well. That's another aspect, that you pass it on to your friends or your family that also could get interested in it, and that's lovely.
And it works occasionally.
I agree.
We do manage to drag people into the church, don't we, Simon? But this is the beauty of the podcasting and live streaming, is we can put it out there from the mic, out into the world there, from our attics or our basements. Or I've seen people make these videos in the car and share them like that, Toby. It doesn't really matter, I suppose, how you record it or where or for how long. It's getting it out there to eager ears.
Yeah, and it's you know, the only thing that worries me about all of this is has been alluded to is you know, the thing to relax about is what anybody else thinks about Doctor Who, because you don't need to give a monkeys. You know, I see people sort of getting het up with each other because, you know, you don't understand the true message of Doctor Who, or the true message of Doctor Who is get it made and don't spend too much money doing it, boys. and you know, anyone who uses the sort of the phrase a true fan, well, I'm sorry, there's not a fanbudsman who sort of measures who is the most, you know, who is the purest. I am no more a true fan than somebody who started watching when Jodie Whittaker started and spends a lot of time squeeing, and I've never squeed in my life, and I don't think I could pull it off even if I
not even if you've sort of come away from the toilet a bit too quick, caught yourself in the fly.
My humour does not venture into the scatological. But you know, I think we should all start to sort of, you know, learn to relax and stop worrying about what we enjoy. As you said, we can all enjoy Doctor Who in the way that we enjoy. And I know some people for whom Doctor Who is the televisual equivalent of the Communist Manifesto, and I know some people who think that Doctor Who has a much more right-wing reading, and either is valid, both are probably wrong, and it's all fine. Don't worry about it. It's only when people do things like put that Zoe Wanamaker was an extra in State of Decay on IMDb. That's what I lose.
That's crossing a line, mate.
Just because they spotted a red-haired extra in the back of a scene and gone, well, I think that's a fact. But that's about facts. If you get facts wrong, then I'm on a spree. But in terms of how other people enjoy the show, that's the beauty of it. You know, we create it in our own image in a way. You know, Remembrance of the Daleks 4 for me will always be the story that was done the week after my granddad died. Now that doesn't affect how I view it or what I think of it as a story, but that means that experience for me is unlike anybody else's experience of that.
Yes.
We've all got those, and it's such a deeply personal thing, and that's why it's actually rather special, because we map our lives to it. You know, we probably remember where we were when we heard certain bits of bad news because that story was on. As I say, if anybody asks me about Who's Round, it's sort of like, yeah, well, it sort of got me. I was going through a divorce. You know, that was the sort of main thing. It's that deeply personal thing, which is what sort of makes it rather special. And I think, unlike a lot of other, essentially, what, you know, because what it is, it's unlike a lot of it is a hobby. It's a hobby, but it's one taken to pathological extremes.
Ken, you must meet hundreds, if not thousands, of Doctor Who fans, not just at the conventions and things, but in your day-to-day sort of life, putting books together and just talking to people like us. Is there any sort of common fan gene that you're aware of, either with standard Doctor Who fans or with people who make content?
We attach meaning to different things. For some people, it's religion. For some people, it's their children. For us as Doctor Who fans, Doctor Who is that, right? We attach some kind of significance to it. And as like Toby was saying, it's all very personal because Toby attaches one thing that happened at a certain point of his life, and I attach it at certain points in my life, but we speak a common language and we share a common passion. And actually, to me, I found that to be, I think maybe when I was younger, I would be like, oh, well, I don't want anybody to know I'm a Doctor Who fan because I just think it's weird. And now it's different. I wear it like a badge of honor, and it's actually very symbolic of me traveling and doing things and trying to better my situation. What's bad about that,
I mean, I think it goes even deeper than that because I agree with Charlotte that it really annoys when people say, it's just a TV program, don't get uptight about it. It's far, far more than TV. It's a way of life. It has been a way of life for me since I first saw Bok when I was 3 years old in 1971. That was that. It's been a way of life. There is literally not, and I'm sure this is probably the same for everybody on the panel and probably everybody in the chat. There isn't a single day that goes by that I don't think about Doctor Who in some way, shape or form, and probably I'll spend a good part of the day in various forms interacting in some way with Doctor Who.
Ridiculous, he says.
It's ridiculous. Who would ever believe it? But it is true. It's far, far more, and that's why I always say that's why Doctor Who fans. Well, firstly, it's why Doctor Who fans get so uptight about it, and why they're so passionate about it, because it is so important to them. But secondly, it's why then we do things like podcasts, because we want to engage. It excites us in such a way. We want to then engage it and take it out to other people. Sorry, Ken.
Doctor Who isn't disposable television. The majority
No.
Disposable reality shows, even sport. You watch it live, and
yeah, absolutely. Once you've watched it, you're never going to watch the final of Wimbledon again a few years later.
And not to be too specific, because I know Toby will say back in the 60s it was disposable television because that's just the way it was viewed when it started. But it became something more than that because of what we attached to it. And podcasting is just the latest way of us expressing our fandom. Some people express it through costuming, some people express it through cooking, some people express it through podcasting. But back in the day, we wouldn't have done this. What we would have done is newsletters or meetups or things like that. This is just the 21st century equivalent to that.
And of course, the other way we would have done it, of course, was through Doctor Who groups. I mean, we were talking before we came on. Toby and I knew the last time Toby and I were in a room together was 35 years ago. Toby, I know, 35 years ago at a Whonatics meeting in the West Midlands. That was the last time we were in a room together. But that's what we were doing. That's how you interacted with Doctor Who fans then. They were local. I don't know whether it's the same in the States, but certainly in the UK, there were Doctor Who groups in most areas in the 70s and 80s, and people would go to them and meet fellow fans. And
I'm sure of you and the rest of your group weren't disagreeing on anything.
that one of those was where I met Toby as well in 1990. It wasn't actually at yours. It was at the Wolves of Fenric in Wolverhampton in 1990 because I was part of several groups. I'm sorry, but I was contributing
the People's Popular Front of the Wolves.
But it was, wasn't it? And we were contributing to fanzines back then as well, which are very much the ancestor of what we do now. And that was firstly where I came across your name, Toby, and met you in all honesty, I only met you very, very briefly. But we were both contributors to I don't know if you remember this fanzine. This is Enlightenment. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I remember Enlightenment. Yeah,
I do.
Remember
edited by the fabulous Roger Clark.
Lovely Roger Clark.
Roger, he's still out there. Hello, Roger. I hope you're watching. He's still out there.
I love
and
Roger. What a nice man.
that is the issue from August of 1990. So I think there was around the time of a World Cup. I think that was the one that Gaza cried at, if you remember. So that was going on then, and that's my illustration of the Wed Planet there on the front cover.
Wow,
as well.
Fantastic. Well done.
I was 15, 16. But if you go inside, so if you go into the review. There's a review of the Web Planet as well. Sorry, amuse yourselves. There's an article here called Focus where you get my illustration again there in full, unfettered by the logo, and it's a review of the Web Planet, and it's written by one Mr. Toby Hadoke.
Oh, Christ.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Wow.
I hated the Web Planet in the olden days, so I dread to think what it says. So, no.
I love how this has become like this is your life.
I deny this reality.
But there were good days, weren't they, Toby? You must remember those old local group days fondly.
It was difficult. I get because I lived out in the middle of nowhere. I used to have to sort of get picked up and driven in by Andy Holding, who was and I'd met him because I've never really been part of organised fandom. Apart from that, it was about an 18-month period, I think, no more than that. Because I went to there's Roger. I went to the place. I went to a shop
Roger.
called The Place that was advertised in Doctor Who magazine, and a friend of mine used to go to a cash and carry in Wolverhampton, so he dropped me off at The Place, and I'd never met any Doctor Who fans, and I didn't know any Doctor Who fans, and then there was this, and so I didn't even have access to old stories. That was where suddenly, it then steamrolled into, oh no, you can get old episodes. We've got them all. And I mean, first of all, going to The Place, actually, what you did was you brought. I can say this now because I don't think it's in operation, so they can't close them down. But you take 2 empty E180 VHSs and you'd get one back full of episodes.
That's right.
And so the first one I did was all the Orphan Troughton episodes. And so the Underwater Menace 3 will always be special to me because it was like watching magic. But then, writing for fanzines and doing all that thing that I did for a very concentrated period. And then I was back to sort of sixth form college and doing drama. And I wasn't part of it. I never joined DWAS or anything like that. So I had that period. And there were meetings, and there were the guests. Roy Skelton came, and Graham Weston from the War Games came.
Yes, I met him as well.
And then it was suddenly all over. So I don't think I was there for very long.
No, I wasn't either, to tell you the truth. Fabulous days, though. Fabulous days.
And as we've got, I do need to go, everybody. So
bye, Charlotte.
Nice to meet you, Charlotte.
Charlotte always disappears at this time.
I do. I have to disappear.
Turns into a pumpkin after 10 o'clock.
I know that's the running joke, but it's been lovely.
Thank you for your call.
Nice to meet you.
People will be able to get more of Charlotte on the Type 40 podcast. That's dropping tomorrow for Doctor Who Podcast Day. But for now, good night, Charlotte. Thank you so much for your company. Night. Bye. And then there were 5 here talking. Yeah, we're two in the fat about the descendant of old fandom that we now do in Doctor Who podcast and live stream form here. Yeah, so fanzines and fan projects and fan meetups are probably the same the whole world over, I would say, Mark. You've got a very storied history with Doctor Who fandom as well, haven't you? You go all the way back to the early 80s, was it you were telling me?
Yeah, the early 80s. There was a Doctor Who convention in Miami called OmniCon that John Nathan Turner used to bring all the people in, all the stars in. And I used to help run it. I started as a volunteer and then started actually working some of the program rooms.
Wow.
I got to do that. There was a Doctor Who fan club down here called TARDIS Repairs Incorporated. It's still around, called Try. They don't want to use the full name anymore for some reason. But I was actually president of that club for about a year. So yeah, I've been deep in fandom since the 80s.
So
Simon, I recall that your magazine, the Whonatics magazine, always had really good artwork. I still remember there was a TARDIS. Was it on the spine or was it on each page? There was a TARDIS, and the TARDIS sort of disappeared. It was a beautiful design.
Yes, it was a book, wasn't it?
It was. Say again, sorry, Dan.
It was like a flick book, wasn't it? So when you turned the page, it would materialize and dematerialize.
Yeah, as I recall.
Yeah, really, really nice. I remember that.
Oh, it's very kind of you. Yeah, I must be honest. I'm amazed, Dan. We didn't get you to do any artwork for the cover. The artwork, I must be honest, was very, very good. I never did any. Well, I did tiny bits, but only really graphic stuff. I think I might have done that. Talking about Toby.
When I was a member, I was very young, really. So your magazine, Second Dimension, was already very well established, and so were the contributors. So I sort of buddied up with a group of people who were just starting out and putting new magazines together, new fanzines together. And that's how I eventually met Roger Clark, started submitting to his, because he was I think they just started the Wolves of Fenric in 1990, whereas you'd been going a little while by that point. Yeah, so it's a case of finding the right opportunity, the right hole to drop into, and the right showcase for my work, really, in that instance. But I had a brilliant time doing it. Again, just like Toby, I think it lasted about 18 months, something like that before. Well, it was basically when the pub started to believe that I looked 18 was basically the watermark.
Yeah, because if it was 1990, I was only 16. I was a school kid. I was young.
Bless you. I can certainly remember, Toby, you coming to a couple of our meetings, and you were very shy, and you were very, very softly spoken, and you didn't actually say a lot. I mean, I know viewers won't believe this now, but you didn't actually say much. I remember. Yeah, exactly. You tell them. I just remember you being very, very shy and very quiet. I remember you very, very distinctly. It's funny. I can remember you.
I've tried to forget a lot of that. I just find it embarrassing that I was that person once. Do you know what I mean? It's like when you old pictures.
I know, but likewise, I look back and I think, gosh, so young, and you were so naive, and you were so stupid, and you didn't said things that you. Yeah, exactly. There you go, John. That you just kind of think, what were you thinking? But we'll probably look back on this in another 10 years' time and think, what were we talking about for 3 hours that night? Was ever thus.
And we've got lots of comments again coming our way on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X about all of this. Simon Ashley says, for me, Doctor Who is a form of escapism. It is for me as well, but it is deeper than that. I can't quite. I think I've worked out what it's kind of tied to, and why initially I latched onto it, but why I'm still attached to it, I have no idea. My name is Charlie. Says, is Kathy Burke in Terminus? Is that story true? I had no idea. No. But it's another myth. No, it's not. Rose Kirby says Doctor Who sometimes is sometimes it's drama, or sometimes it's an escape. It's wonderful, so it can be all things to all different people. And I suppose the format of it, particularly the classic series, of being that kind of anthology feel of so many different tones, works particularly well. We've got Babette Bombshell says, I was joyously completely cut off from all Doctor Who production information. I had no idea Tom Baker was leaving when he regenerated. I had no forewarning before past Doctors returned in the 5 Doctors, so going completely blind. I think that was probably particular to being in the States, wasn't it, Ken?
Yeah. And the thing, lost my train of thought. You were mentioning something a second ago, and I was like, wait a minute. This was right on point, but anyway, sorry guys.
Tell me why.
Paul Richards agrees with you, Simon. It means so much to me.
Yeah, it means so much to us. Yes, sorry, Paul.
Okay.
You're quite right. It does.
Describe Doctor Who as comfort food. That was the
comfort.
Yeah.
It is comfort food.
When you're having a bad day, Toby described it before about going through a divorce, you go to a safe place in your heart. You go to a safe place. Yeah. In your heart, and that's what Doctor Who is too.
Yeah, it's like one of the things. It's like a good friend. If you're having a bad day and you want to talk, you want to be with somebody.
And Mark, I don't know if you find this as well. One of the things that I've found surprising and quite humbling is it's what I was saying about podcasting being this sort of two-way street. Is when people get in touch with me and with us and say that what we found in the show, either escapism or something warm, that comfort food, hearing familiar voices, ideally dropping an episode on a set day regularly every week, but to fit into a weekly routine, people get comfort from that. Yeah. In the same way that people do sometimes from the radio as well, maybe particularly people who may live alone. It's a similar kind of thing. It's an open conversation. Sometimes it's a conversation that only one party, the speaker can hear. We can't hear what the listener's thinking and saying back to us in their kitchen over the washing up. But it's to be conscious of the fact that there is someone there.
Yes.
Well, do you know? I think you can sort of forget this as well at your cost. But one of the things that Neil Cole, the curator of the brilliant Museum of Classic Sci-Fi,
we love Neil.
What Neil has always said, going back to my magazine that we were just talking about a few minutes ago, the Whonatics magazine, done in the late 80s, early 90s. He was in a very, by his own admission, he talks about this freely. He's talked about it on one of our shows. He was in a very dark place at that time in the late 80s, early 90s. And he said to me that magazine that I used to send to him every month literally got him through some dark days because he felt a connection with us. Well, that's it. Back in those days, that was just a fanzine that was very much sort of a one-way street, if you like. The beauty of podcasts now, moving into the 21st century, is we've got this, like I was saying earlier, you've got this immediacy. We've got people in the chat now. And we've had this before now, where people will come into the chat and say, I was having a really bad day, but I've just been cheered up just listening to people chatting about this stuff. It's brilliant.
It's like a confessional sometimes. My name is Charlie says, I cringe when I think what I must have been like back then. We all different
do.
people
My name is Charlie.
lives,
We all do. Doesn't matter. It's all gone.
Rose Kirby's in the live chat and just says thank you for for the show. Wonderful memories and stories you're telling. I love listening. Thank you. See, all that stuff it's worth its weight in gold. And it's a real sense of extended community here. It is genuinely appreciated. But again, it's an evolution. It's an evolution of the fanzines, of the groups. It was lovely to get together, and it still is lovely to get together with people in a room there, in a cellar. That was, Toby, if you remember, Simon's took place in the cellar of that hotel in Warsaw, and Rogers, that was at the chaplaincy building. It's a little building, wasn't it? We're kind of isolated. But these are kind of similar. A YouTube channel, a podcast, or Discord servers. I don't understand Discord at all, but I know lots of our younger followers and subscribers here. They tell us you need to get on Discord. I can't do Discord. I can't even do Insta. I'm going to struggle with Discord. But you knock yourselves out. Have fun with that. But I suppose eventually this will evolve. It's already evolved for us, hasn't it? Simon started out doing just plain audio. Now we do audio and video and lots more interaction, different formats. We push Type 40 out as a brand, so we can try all this different stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's all good. It's all good stuff. I mean, when we started doing this, they weren't even live. I remember when we sort of first began to think about doing live, and it seemed sort of terrifying. And now, as I say, it's the live thing that works well, I think, because it's just great having this interaction. I'm just always looking down these chats and seeing what people are commenting about. We said this before now, that we might not always be able to answer you or bring them up on screen, but we read them all. Sorry, Toby.
I think it's almost the opposite of that whole thing of television. It used to be live, even when it wasn't, and then it became pre-recorded. It's almost when it was lockdown. My comedy club that I've emceed for 27 years, and that we didn't want to stop when there was lockdown, but we couldn't do live shows. So one of the team just had the idea and said, well, let's just get the comedians on and do it. And we sort of did this. But each comic would do that. And it's not the same as doing a set in front of an audience. And I thought it would be terrible. And I thought it would be a real compromise. But what I hadn't figured on was that because it was live, everybody experienced it at the same time.
Yes.
It was at a time when people were more than, and people are increasingly today as well in their own funny little worlds because we interact less personally and physically, that moment of all coming together and having that same moment, that same experience at the same time was actually rather special for a lot of people who were feeling isolated or lacking in communion or whatever. And I think increasingly we might find this sort of thing important because we don't have that thing where there's only 3 programs on, so the chances are everybody has had the shared experience the next day. And actually, as we have this, increasingly we can curate our own entertainment so that I can watch episode 3 of The Mandalorian whenever I like, and you will watch it 3 weeks later or 10 years later or whatever. We need something as a cultural sort of lodestone, if you like, Otherwise, nobody's having the same conversations. Nobody's feeding off each other. And if you don't feed off the socialization of other people, and if you don't have a shared thing, it's probably quite unhealthy, and that people value experiencing all being part of the same thing at the same time.
Yes, I totally agree. We've lost that. That's one of the downsides of television streaming now, is that we've lost that sense of community of literally television shows that would bring us together. We didn't necessarily register at the time that everybody was watching the same thing, but actually subconsciously, I think that was doing more to us as humans than we realized at the time. That sense of community, if we're all watching it at the same time, and it's gone now. And as a result, it loses, for me, it loses collateral. It loses the weight that it had back when we were all watching it at the same time. And that, again, I think is one of the reasons why doing live shows just is fun to do, because you've got that sense of community. You're quite right, Toby.
What do you think the next evolution is going to be for this, Mark? For any of it, for the live stuff, the podcasting? Is it just going to gradually sort of everything going to meet in the middle somewhere and congeal and coalesce and then become something else? So what do you think it's going to be? Holograms? Are we going to just project ourselves?
Yeah, we're going holograms. Totally. Holograms. Totally. 100% holograms. We'll be going into
Be afraid, everybody.
Everyone's living room will be doing, yes, that's what we're doing.
Do you think they're ready for holograms of us? I don't think they're ready for that.
but it's bizarre. One of the things that I think's been a big community thing, or certainly a big talking point and a big bonding thing, the Blu-ray trailers being released, and then people going to watch the BFI showings of the stories. I'd resigned myself 10 years ago when the DVD range finished to kind of, that's it then, because
that's the end of that.
So would I.
It's definitive. We've got commentaries on everything. We've got documentaries on everything, and then the Blu-rays started to come out, and they started to get more ambitious. But then it seemed that people wanted to talk about them, and then the trailers, then the events, and so you can't see where the next. Just when you think you've sort of exhausted everything, and I love those. I don't live in London, but I tend to try and go to those BFI things. Just even though I've seen the episode, I've got them here, probably in about 10 different ways. But there's something about being in the same room at the same time with all of the people, and some of the cast turn up, and just and everyone's sort of quite excited,
about something that we've seen dozens and dozens of times. I have often wondered. I've felt the call to go to the BFIs if it's some sort of clarion call to meet with my people.
I've never enjoyed the Time Meddler more than watching it at the BFI in a room full of people. I've always thought it was fine, but it was never a massive favourite of mine. But watching it in a room full of people, absolutely charmed by it, I suddenly saw things in it that I'd sort of rather taken for granted, and it gave it a whole new lease of life for me.
Do you know,
it's funny, we found that. Well, Simon, I found that. Sorry for interrupting, but I found that, and I don't know if you. And this chimes sort of with what Toby does, doing commentaries. Last year, you and I did a commentary just on the very first episode, An Unearthly Child, didn't we, with Sarah? Yeah. And look how that 24 minutes we spent together watching and commenting and reacting to that as live with friends. Totally different viewing experience. So I can completely believe everything that Toby's said.
Yes, completely. And you see things in entirely different lights. And what I was going to say was that a few years ago, quite a few years ago now, in Birmingham, they did a screening of the colorized The Mind of Evil, the new colorized version of that. Now, I have always found The Mind of Evil an absolute slog. I never enjoyed it. But exactly the same as you just said, Toby, sitting there in that in a smallish cinema, watching it with a load of Doctor Who fans, it's now my favourite story in that season. I found something, I saw something in it that I've never seen before, and I never thought I would see, and I now absolutely love it. What's that about? I don't know. I've still not managed to quantify and work out why I suddenly love it so much, but I do.
Do you think it's because, particularly with the classic show, that there was something communal about watching it in the first place, with most of the time with family?
Maybe, and maybe there was that sense of immediacy, because certainly until the earliest time I was ever able to record an episode of Doctor Who was 1982. Actually, gosh, it's just occurred to me, this is really spooky, this is timey-wimey again. This week Earthshock was screening in the Doctor Who and the Monsters season in 1982 this week, and that was my very first VHS recording ever of a Doctor Who episode, because we got isn't that, and I've only just clocked that, but it was this week, 1982, Earthshock was episode 1 was screening of Earthshock, and I'd say that was the very first thing I recorded on a VHS, because we got the VHS machine. So what I was going to say was, I wonder whether it was the immediacy. We couldn't even record it, so we had to watch it. So maybe it was the immediacy of watching it live, knowing it was the only time you were ever going to watch that episode, because we never thought of anything beyond that.
Yeah, burn it into your memory.
The most exciting thing ever. But funnily enough, Simon, as you're doing this, I thought I'd look it up, because you alluded to those summer repeats.
Yes,
being a big thing. Well, my first memory of anything, but my first memory, certainly of Doctor Who, is of the summer repeat of The Invisible Enemy.
Brilliant.
Because I remember my brothers saying, "Oh, this is where their faces turn furry," and I remember those opening segments, and they'd clearly seen it before. So, but it was episode 1, so it wasn't.
But you hadn't.
So it was definitely there, and that was shown between the 13th of July and the 3rd of August, 1978. So that finished this week. And that was my first Doctor Who.
Wow.
It's interesting. My first Doctor Who was in this fall of 1978, when our public television started showing the Tom Baker seasons.
Yeah.
I started with Sontaran Experiment episode 2, the first time they ran it, and I really liked it. So I decided I was going to watch it, and then what comes on next, I was hooked. Genesis of the Daleks. I had no choice. I became a Doctor Who fan.
Whether you grew up in the 60s or 70s or the 80s, obviously everybody's got a story to tell.
Yeah,
that's similar to that. Obviously, a moment where your life's never really the same. Again, changed forever by a TV show, and it begins its gradual journey, sort of to burrow its way into your heart.
I love meeting people who were born in the wilderness years. My friend
Tom
is a grown up. I don't know how my friend Tom is a grown up, because he was born between the Began movie and anyway. And it's like, how am I in the? Have you got a job?
Charlotte's the same. Charlotte's 28.
And there are people who they got Battlefield on VHS from a car boot sale or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was their thing. And for them, there'll be nothing more magical than getting this thing that was like they got the last bit of their pocket money, and they stuck it in, and suddenly it took them to this magical world. And it doesn't have to be. I mean, Mark, you had easy. Genesis of the Daleks. Yeah. Anyone can do that.
Right. No. But it was amazing how that happened to be the second episode that was on when I started watching it.
Yeah. But it's funny. I mean, Charlotte, who obviously now has disappeared, but she often says about how there is so much Doctor Who that she's still never seen. As an episode like this, there's so much out there that she still hasn't seen, and I would give anything to be able to see new Doctor Who for the first time, like she is able to just think, oh, I'll just pop onto the Whoniverse tonight on iPlayer, and I'll just try a new John Pertwee story. I'd love to be able to do that. Wouldn't you, Toby?
Absolutely.
We just know something I've noticed that does chime with memories of fanzines and local groups, Simon, yours included, is how being a young fan, I don't know if you found this as well, Toby, but being a young fan who loved Doctor Who as it was then, I was in the 80s, I was at school, I loved the show, nobody at school loved it, it was the love that dare not speak its name in the playground at school. So I come and find my people, and they all hate it too. All they do was talk about the 60s and the 70s, and I was just Johnny come lately. You missed all the good stuff. But I loved 80s Doctor Who, and not so many episodes, but all those Doctors, and look a bit doctorish, don't they? But all those Doctors in the 80s. And so for me, the 80s is a really magical time. And so to be all these decades on, and now all that has been sort of reduced, and I don't think there's as much received wisdom as there used to be. The reception to the announcement of the season 25 Blu-ray, for example, which I know wasn't as loathed as the year that had gone before, but generally speaking, that entire era was kind of frowned upon for a while, but look at the reception to that when it was announced. It was rapturous, and it was like the equivalent of Sophie Aldred crowd surfing across the British Isles, until the thing is actually released, and this is supposed to be when the show was on its uppers. So it's all sort of coalesce now into this glorious stream of content that people can dive into at any time, and half the joy is in the comparing and the contrasting, and I hear far less of that kind of snootiness than I used to. Everybody's got their favourites, but now certainly what we enjoy doing on this show is to share why and how we respond in the way that we do, and I think that's the healthiest place to get to. It might have taken 40 years for some of us, but I'm there.
I wish I could go back in time and tell my youngest self to chill out.
Yes,
I'm a child of the cancellation, the hiatus, and up until that point, up until my mum, told me, "Oh, Doctor Who's being taken off," or whatever, when it seemed to just be a thing that was always had been and always will be, and everybody knew about it. Doctor Who: A Celebration came out on the 20th anniversary, and it said Doctor Who is this thing that even people that didn't particularly watch it knew it, and it had affection, and it was even a joke. Knock knock, who's there, Doctor Who? And then almost overnight, it transformed into the thing that only the hardcore liked, and the people that liked it were sad and idiots. And from then on, I was always looking for something within the show that would be the cause of its downfall. So I was always on edge. I was always going, if I didn't like that story, or I didn't like that actor, I didn't like that monster, it was like, well, this will be the reason they'll take it off the air. And I spent so much of my time worried and sad. And so I didn't enjoy the McCoy era at all. I was furious with it. I was furious with Remembrance of
You're
the Daleks.
always always on edge. Every twist and turn of the show's fortunes.
I love those stories now, and with the distance of time, and I wish I could
So
go
do
back to my younger self and say, it's fine.
It'll be okay.
Yeah, because when I see sort of people now getting sort of cross because somebody has a different opinion about Doctor Who than them, or this has been said, you just sort of go, just remember to enjoy it. That's the whole point, and to not worry about. I think I always had somebody else's eye on it. And
the other thing that worried me, Toby, was when I remember as a child, was as a teenager, when I was sort of 10, 11, 12, when I was becoming absolutely obsessed with Doctor Who. And it meant so much to me. I literally used to have sleepless nights worrying that one of these days it would be taken off the air and it would no longer be. I used to think into the future. I used to think, when I'm grown up, will Doctor Who still be on television? And of course, again, because in those days, this was before even VHS recorders. So those episodes were now gone. So I had no concept at all of anything. That, as far as I was concerned, Doctor Who had been and gone. Those episodes were never to be seen again. So I was thinking, gosh, will it still be on television? Will I still enjoy it? Will I be able to? And here we are, all these years, 45, 50 years later, and we're still sitting here talking about it. It is kind of crackers. And that's what I wish I could go back and tell my former self. Don't have your sleepless nights, because you will still be incredibly doing shows like this.
So before we close the discussion, Simon, how does it make you feel at the end of a season now, where for anybody out there, anybody watching the show, like the younger fans in particular, who think, oh my God, I hope it comes back. Now they fill the screen with these giant words of reassurance that no matter how bad that episode might have been, Doctor Who will return. It will return.
Whether you like it or not, it will return.
It will be continued.
James Bond will be back.
Yes. We live in fabulous times, and what a great discussion we've been having here about the heart of Doctor Who, about the fandom, our fandoms, your fandoms too, with those brilliant comments in the live chat across YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X. Thank you so much, and thank you to her as well. Thank you to Daphne Ashbrook.
Oh, we had her.
The Doctor's Doctor.
We had her on our show. She was great.
Turning up, answering the beeper. The doctors still have beepers. They probably don't. Answering the beeper anyway for Doctor Who Podcast Day, August the 9th. It's August the 9th. Everybody, timed to coincide with the 2005 premiere of the very first Doctor Who podcast, which Ken was on. That was Doctor Who Podshock all the way back then, and we've been gathering together with content creators here for a good old natter about all of that and all of this and everything in between.
I thought that Podshock was the first podcast that Toby had ever done. He joined us on stage at Gallifrey way back. But then the guys at Radio Free Skaro said that they interviewed you before you went on stage.
Oh,
they got in again, did they?
So I don't know. It might have to be like a caged wrestling match for the honor of who
that I want to see.
Oh dear. What a picture to fill your minds with, everybody. So let us know what you think of all of this, the cut and thrust of this deep and meaningful conversation we've been having over the last however long. Has this stirred up any memories for you? Do you want to confess something from your youth or from last week? Doesn't really matter. It all counts here in the comments section, and we'll get right back to you. We promise. Whilst you're at it, please like the video. It does help a lot more than you think. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, check you're still subscribed, and hit the cloister bell to get notified about what's coming next and when and all that jazz. Okay, guys, that was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much. We have got, how about him?
This is Philip Roy playing the Doctor.
And I'm Mandy Rose and I play Jenny.
For the Doctor Who fan film, Doctor Who Meets the Scorpion, this is the Type 40 podcast.
Oh, one more thing, everybody. How could I possibly forget? As ever, we are rounding things off with a last look at the view screen. It's our regular eye up your temporal schism in search of the prettiest pictures from out there across the Whoniverse. I'm talking about digital art and traditional art. We're talking about crafting and cosplay as well. It's all fair game here for us in the Type 40 console room. Get it up on the screen. But your part isn't over. We need to know who your favourite fan artists are and where we can find them, because we need more to put up on the view screen. Of course we do. So if you're a fan artist or you know a fan artist that you think that we'd like, then send us their way or them our way, and we can get all their work up on the screen, just like this fabulous piece that I can't stop looking at from Kelly Haynes and Paddy Clark, the Doctor Who postbox topper. How English can you possibly get, Mark? Have you seen this before?
I know I have not seen this one before. I have not seen this picture before.
Absolute magic.
Really
I do love these.
Tom's hair. It's Tom's hair.
We are blessed with the most creative of fan base, aren't we? Stimulated, obviously, by decades worth of Doctor Who history. Could be the past, could be the present, could be the future. And the future, the very near future, has inspired one particular artist. So I'm talking about Joy to the World. That's the upcoming Doctor Who Christmas special coming in a few months' time there. And we've had a trailer for this, didn't we, at San Diego Comic-Con last week, and a sneaky peek at this fella. So this is the Silurian. There's the manager of something somewhere for some reason. I suppose we'll find out on Christmas Day, won't we, Ken? But so that's been left hanging there for us. But a lot of us do feel, do still hanker for the days when there was proper Silurians, like this horrible.
Now that's a Silurian.
You wouldn't want to meet him in a dark cave, would you, Simon?
No, definitely wouldn't. Definitely, he's definitely a Silurian. Thank you very much.
I think, though, that actor looks to me like a lovely actor, Jonathan Arris, whose dad, Ben Arris, was in episode 1 of Invasion of the Dinosaurs. Or Invasion.
Oh, no!
Hang on. Invasion. Ben Arris from Heidi High?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Really?
Yeah.
Incredible. I knew you'd come out with some amazing facts. Yeah. So this is how they used to be. Of course it is. And we know how they look now. But Doctor Who fan artists, we're never really happy, are we? And if the show can't give us a happy medium, then we can. Or should I say he can? Daryl Joyce has reimagined the Silurians. Now, Daryl, the fabulous artist, I was going to say fan artist, he's a published artist. He was in the live chat earlier on, and I just wanted to get this up on screen. It's Daryl's take on the Silurians. Russell, you're watching, mate. Check this out.
Look at that.
Wow, that's scary.
Nice.
It is.
That's like back to Hammer Horror again. That's well scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is.
Well, yeah.
God.
We've seen several fan redesigns of the Silurians, in particular, Toby. I think people just can't get used to the new ones. It's been a long time. I think we might as well. We should get over it. But creating fan art like this just beautiful. Yeah, I'm convinced. I'd have this. I'd take this.
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm pragmatic about the new ones. I mean, I we're Doctor Who fans. I see body horror where some people see sticky tape. It's the way it's shaped. But I understand that. I guess in the modern way that things are digested, people need to see the eyes and the mouth and the performance, and it means you get good actors. But it may be that nostalgia also. I love those original Silurians. I still think they've never improved on the original Sontaran masks. I mean,
I would agree.
Simon often says that.
I think Lynx is the best Sontaran.
I always say that, Toby. Thank you. Seriously, don't like Dan. I'm always trolling that one out.
Every single time.
Every chance I get to. Bang that.
Philip Roy says, gorgeous Silurian redesign from Daryl. My name is Charlie says, Daryl's picture strip of Invasion of the Dinosaurs is awesome. Well, Daryl's awesome. What do you expect? Rob Alexander says it's a superb reworking of a classic. And Paul Richards says Daryl's art is superb. Much, much better than the new ones. You're listening, Daryl? Yeah, he is. I've been coaxed into doing a lot of these now, says Daryl. Well, I can't get enough of them, mate. Really superb work. Superb. Paul Richards makes the claim that reptiles shouldn't have breasts. It's... You've got
a point, Paul. Yeah, I've got a point. It's undeniable.
And there's lots more comments there in appreciation of Daryl's fabulous work. You can follow him on X and see more of his great work, X and Facebook, I think. And yeah, Daryl, he's serving us more of those, more tremendous traditional art. Now, in the Doctor Who Diary, we lamented the 30-year anniversary of the passing of the great Peter Cushing. Somebody in the live chat described him as the gentleman of cinema. Couldn't agree more. And as with any movie icon, he's bound to inspire a lot of artists as well. He's inspired Richard Young to create this beautiful picture of Peter Cushing as Doctor Who.
Oh, I love that. I want a copy of that.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Fantastic.
Absolutely gorgeous work from Richard. And I like how he's made the, is it a scarf or a shawl that the Doctor Who's wearing there? It looks some outer spacey.
Yeah, it reminds me of the sort of Chris Achilleos artwork where he would have sort of planets and space and stars within William Hartnell's clothes. And so it's very reminiscent of that, isn't it? It's like a sort of nebula in his jacket. I love that. It's just stunning. Beautiful.
Lovely shot of Cushing, says Divining Dragon. We've got a beautiful from a Stephen Braddock and a fabulous from Crimpline Doubloon. And Paul Richards adds that artwork of Cushing's Doctor looks absolutely amazing. And Matthew Pounder says how it's captured Doctor Who's personality, the curiosity and sort of impishness.
Yeah, because I must be honest, I love his portrayal of the Doctor. I think it works beautifully, and I love the fact that then Peter Capaldi always sort of borrowed from it, didn't he? Quite with his heart on his sleeve, he admitted to it.
Did he?
He was borrowing Cushing's Walk. That was what he used to talk about.
Oh, I see it now. Yeah.
Yeah, when you look at it, it is. It's Cushing's Walk as Doctor Who. Say again.
The bandy legs.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Capaldi only left the role. Capaldi only left the role 7 years ago, and I've only just noticed.
Seriously, we've never noticed that before. Wow. My goodness. There's always something to learn. There's always something to learn.
Paul Richards says, bring back the proper police box design. And Fly High Island, there's another one here that says the Cushing films were my first experience of Doctor Who, so they mean a lot to me. You're not alone, Fly High Island, not at all. And finally, we've got this picture. Now, he was in the live chat earlier on. It might be past his bedtime now. I'm not sure. Tom from T Dwarf Productions. He has now. I always mistrust a Doctor Who fan who also watches sport as well. I think it's unnatural and ungodly. But
it's not right. It's not right.
But Tom, it seems that Tom has been riveted to the Olympics, and he's created this fabulous tribute here in his customary model-making method, Simon. So you'll have to remind me, what does Tom use to make these? Check out his Great British Olympic team.
Whoa.
So we've got a giant spider, the Spider Queen, and we have that's a Supreme Dalek, isn't it, from the Dalek invasion of Earth, I think? Let's go for
Evil of the Daleks. That's an Evil of the Daleks. Well, it's kind of a hybrid, actually, because it should have the slats on if it was Evil of the Daleks, but it's got the black dome of Evil of the Daleks and sort of the shoulder section of the Dead Planet. Gosh, we're getting really deep now, aren't we? But it's a hybrid Dalek. But it's beautiful. I love it.
Because he loves a mashup as well, doesn't he, Tom? It has to be said. It's a beautiful job, as always.
He does love a mashup, and he loves his spiders. He's just recreated, apparently, the throne room from Planet of the Spiders with about 50 spiders in them, and he uses silk clay. It's something called silk clay.
That's it.
Which is basically the same as plasticine, but the difference is that it sets hard. Unlike plasticine, it sets hard. When you only got so long to work with it before it sets. And so he's done a Metabilis and 8 legs there as well with the with the sweat hands.
We've got a confession here. Heretic says, I watch sport. My name is Charlie. Says, I play sport and love Doctor Who. But please don't tell anyone. Were your secrets safe with us, Charlie? And obviously Tom's work is brilliant. If you want to know more about Tom's methods behind his model making, there's a Type 40 extra conversation Simon and I and Sarah had with Tom where he goes into great detail about how he puts these things together. And there's contact details as well because he does do commissions. Beautiful work there from Tom, model maker extraordinaire. Of course, that's more fan art dished out, but we've got big old walls here in the TARDIS. We need to fill them up with more. So get us your fan art, digital art, traditional art, cosplay, and crafting. It's all fair game to be pinned up here for a crit and to show fellow companions and Time Lords.
He chose the same colours. He chose the right colours.
Wow. That's an Evil of the Daleks, Dalek.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That's fantastic. When you get bored of that, Toby, just sort of trundling down the M6 in my direction, I'll look after him for a while.
Well, I think the deal is they get bored of you.
Is that what it is? You've got to be careful. You've got to watch your back then, Toby, there.
Exactly, yeah. When he turns up at yours, you'll know he's finished with me.
I'll call the police. I'll know that you've been exterminated.
What a fun show. What a great panel. What a bunch of good sports and some fantastic comments there across YouTube, Rumble, Facebook and X. This has been our party live stream to launch Doctor Who Podcast Day for 2024, Friday the 9th of August. It's all kicking off tomorrow across social media. You should see hashtags trending, podcasts dropping and communities coming together and maybe old friends reuniting a bit like we've had on this edition of the show. You can catch the guys, the content creators and various projects they've got on the go. So let's remind them where you can hear all of our guests. So Toby, yes, your home feed where people can find 3-4 podcasts, however many Toby Hadoke's Time Travels. Give them the pitch, mate. Give them the pitch.
Toby Hadoke's Time Travels. So there's Happy Times and Places, which is Doctor Who commentaries, where I get a guest to choose a story, and they, without me knowing, choose their favourite thing about each episode. So then I commentate along with the story, and I drop in facts and tell you things about the actors and blah blah blah.
Awesome.
But always trying to be positive. It's very much one where I'm just trying to put cheerfulness out of there.
It's a white pill. It's a white pill.
It's a tricky world, and I have all sorts of special guests from people like from Steve Lyons to Annie Wallace from Hollyoaks. A lot of different actors, people who love Doctor Who from different walks of life. And that's the one that's just a commentary. Then there's Too Much Information, which is a deep dive into every single episode, and I mean that in the English way, not the American way. When I say episode, as in a 25-minute installment,
Gotcha.
I tell you everything about that over the course of about an hour. And then there's Indefinable Magic, which is my personal favourite, which is sort of whimsical essays inspired by an aspect of Doctor Who, from the Target books to the missing episodes. There's one episode about carrots in Doctor Who, but it's an excuse.
Why not?
They're supposed to be mildly. Their purpose is nothing serious, nothing political, just to entertain.
I see what you did there.
They're on Toby Hadoke's Time Travels, and they're quite fun and all sort of fairly good natured. But too much information is especially nerky. I mean, I did, and then there's a bonus one called Far Too Much Information. That there's only a few of, but in one of those, for example, I track down and tell you what happened to every single one of the Coal Hill school kid extras. And they've all got a story to tell. And what was beautiful was when I first did it, I couldn't find two of them, and one of them I couldn't find was the Kenneth Williams guy. And then, as a result of doing the podcast, I managed to find the other. I managed to find both of them and what happened to them as well. So
the Kenneth Williams guy, and we all know who you mean as well by that description.
We all know.
Fantastic stuff. So you can find a link to Toby's podcast here in the description and the show notes.
With that, gents, I'm so sorry. We've got a bit of an emergency on Hadoke Towers. My partner's not in the best of health, so I'm going to have to now go and deal with all of that, if that's okay. But
it's been a pleasure.
So I'm sorry to shoot off. I was a bit nervous about tonight because I've never done one. I really enjoyed it, and thanks for your company, and thanks for asking me, and thanks for all the lovely comments.
Thank you for your time and everything you've done for Doctor Who Podcast Day as well, Toby.
It was nice meeting you, Toby. I've always wanted to meet you.
Oh well, you too, Mark. Thank you. Bless you. Well, let's all do this again.
Come back and have a chat another day.
Yeah, and apologies for shooting out.
No worries. Let's do it again.
No problem at all. Good night. Hope everything's well.
I don't actually know how to do it though.
Hey, you've got to hit the big red X with
that says Leave Studio.
Just close the window. Close the window.
And then there were four. And then there
Bless him.
Toby Hadoke's Time Travels there. Link in the description and the show notes. Thanks again for that, Toby. Who next? Oh, of course. Mr. Mark Who 42 and his universe. So again, all the links are in the description. But go on, give him a bit of a pitch for what you're doing. What's coming up next?
Okay, the show that's coming out at 12 noon British summertime on tomorrow, on the 9th, is in celebration of the podcast day and Intergalactic Friendship Day, which just happened. So our episode is all about Doctor Who and Star Trek crossovers. We're talking a little about the mobile video game that they were talking about at San Diego. We're going to talk about the IDW Assimilation Squared that came out more than a few years ago.
Yeah,
and even
10 years.
And even this fan fiction called The Doctor and the Enterprise by Gene Airy that came out in the 80s. We talk about a lot of different things. And, I have to say something. When we were talking about it, I completely forgot to mention Gail Bennett's name. Gail Bennett did the artwork for one of the editions of that story, and Gail was a friend of mine from down
I remember Gail so well from the sort of the mid 80s. Gail Bennett was the name. Am I not right in remembering that she did the John Pertwee painting in the Time Lash, didn't she?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. But so I didn't say it on the show you're going to listen to tomorrow, so I'm saying it now because Gail Bennett, she did a great job on that. I loved it. So we have that. That's at markwho42.com and all the podcast platforms around the interweb thingy. If you want to listen to old episodes from 2012 up until 2018 that have interviews with people like Sylvester McCoy, Sophie Aldred, Lisa Bowerman, Bruce Boxlight, not Doctor Who, but you can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@markwho42 and click on the classic Mark Who 42 playlist, and we've got over 100 episodes of the old show there with all those great interviews. I also do a show called Mark Who 77. It's a co-production between myself and 77 Publishing, which is a comic book company that is in Great Britain. And we talk to comic book creators. And we've actually had some Doctor Who relevant guests. We had Steve Parkhouse, who did comics back in Doctor Who Weekly. We had Mike Collins, who does some of the Doctor Who storyboards. And in fact, if you're watching the episode, because it's a video, if you watch the episode, I've got a few of the storyboards on the screen. And we've also had John Wagner. I wonder who he is.
2000 AD legend.
2000 AD legend and Doctor Who Weekly. Steve McManus, Tharg from the late 70s into the 80s and then the 90s when he was not the editor.
This is British comics royalty,
British
never mind
comic
Doctor Who royalty.
Yeah. Oh, we have. We've had. Mike Walters. I don't know if you know who he is. He won the Thought Bubble contest, the 2008 contest, a few years ago, and he started doing something for 2000 AD called Longbourn High. Well, now he's doing so much more. I think he just did some Judge Dredd strips. I mean, he's just big in 2000 AD now. He's exploded since we did the interview with him. So yeah, we have a good time on that, and you can find that at youtube.com/@the77publications, and there's a playlist for Mark Who's 77 there.
Brilliant. Thanks for coming on again, Mark. It's been great to speak to you again. We can't leave it a year until the next one, so please come back and have
I would love to come on the show as a guest a regular time.
It's been lovely. It's been lovely having you on.
It would be absolutely wonderful. And Ken Deep, of course, without whom none of us would be here talking about any of this stuff. And but now you're the custodian of Long Island, who not long until it all kicks off for you. So remind people of what's happening, where, and about your fabulous discount offer. When does it start? When does it finish? How much is it for? And what do they get?
Okay, longislanddoctorwho.com, fully spelled out, is the place to find it on the web, and it's, of course, all over the social medias. And it's 2 weeks away. It's coming up August 23rd, 24th, and 25th at the Holiday Inn in Holtzville here on Long Island. Colin Baker, Nicola Bryant, a whole host of Doctor Who guests from...
Anyone who's anyone, really.
Anyone who's anyone. Is coming. And so for Doctor Who Podcast Day, starting at 12 midnight Eastern Time, people can get $19 off either the 3-day general admission weekend pass or the Sunday single day pass if they purchase it on August 9th by using DWPD 2024 as the discount code. And come save some money. I mean, if you're just coming for the day, it makes like the Sunday half price pretty neat. So, fighting inflation best we can. It is a fan run con, so every dollar we make goes back into the con. We do it for love, and it really is just that simple. I guess I put the podcasting aside to do this instead because I come out of a bit of a live event background. So as much as I enjoy podcasting, I also enjoy seeing people's faces because you get that actual, the responses you get when you see people meeting their heroes and their favorite people. That actually is something that really makes
making the magic happen, Ken. Making the magic happen.
Yeah, it really is, and there's a great feeling to it. And we've been doing it for over a decade. It started out as just kind of thinking it would be like a one-off, for the 50th anniversary, and people really seem to enjoy it, and they come out for it every year, and I'll keep doing it while they keep showing up. So,
Ken, I wish I hadn't moved with my family as a kid because I grew up in Huntington Station.
You would have been right.
I would have been there, and I'm still waiting for my invite. I didn't get my invite. You said last year I didn't get my invite. Let's make it 2025. Me coming over, do panels, have fun. Yeah.
Oh, it's very simple when it comes to podcasters. I'm extremely podcaster friendly. All the podcasters do is get themselves there.
Okay.
I make them feel very welcome. I go out of my way to try to get them some time with the guests, and definitely to be involved in the programming that we do.
I'll get myself some New York next year.
Maybe one day, Dan. Maybe we'll get over there.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Conversion rate works in Brit's favor.
Thank you both again for your company, and obviously our thanks to Toby Hadoke, to Charlotte Shields too, as always. This has been Type 40 live across Rumble, X, YouTube, and on Facebook too, with our fabulous live stream full of we've got a chat full of our friends, fans, and companions there as well, all chipping in with comments. No doubt that will continue after the show and over the weekend as well. Also questions about podcast day and about the various things that we've been talking about on this edition of the show. Past editions of Type 40 Live are up here on the channel in the playlists. Of course there are. The other 174 shows before this one So there's our deep dive reviews there on the most recent episodes, such as Legend of Ruby Sunday there. We did a couple of hours on that on the night. Our huge show about the robots of death. We were waiting years to record that. It's finally out there. There was our reaction show as well to the spruced up edition of Pyramids of Mars from not that long ago. And of course, our weekly live streams as well, covering the news, loaded with the Who News and the Who Talk, Mondays and Thursdays from 8 p.m. here on the Type 40 channel on Rumble and on YouTube, streaming to X as well. So you can get all that as well as the Type 40 podcast as well. So all of that here at Type 40. Brand new podcast coming tomorrow for Doctor Who Podcast Day. That's our Mount Who. The Mount Rushmore of Doctor Who. I know, it seemed like a good idea at the time, but stick with it. It'll be worth it. It'll be worth it, I promise. All for Doctor Who Podcast Day. Of course it is. So keep your eyes peeled on the socials for the hashtags tomorrow. Maybe your favourite Doctor Who podcast has dropped an episode or will drop an episode. And if they don't, we'll go and have a word with them and tell them. They've absolutely got to
get on board.
Yes,
get on board. Don't be left behind. You'd be all tears again. Look, he's a right state already. Bloody hell.
He's always in a state.
Yes, so joy.
Ezra Goldstein says in the chat, can someone please put a link to the Doctor Who convention? So Ken, I don't know whether you're able maybe to put a comment.
It's in the description.
Oh, is it there? There you go, Ezra.
So let's join us again very soon, same time and space, for more hot takes, pet peeves, rants and raves here on Type 40 Live. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the cloister bell to turn on all your notifications. Get some Mark Who 42 in your life. Head over to LI Who there with Ken. Go meet Ken and enjoy and show your fandom to him. It's clearly what he loves, to see the looks on people's faces. Fabulous stuff. Don't forget to check out Toby Hadoke's feed there of all those podcasts, Markups 3, 4, however many he's doing there, all there. And head back here for more Type 40 Live and Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast tomorrow and next week, not necessarily in that order. Ooh, what a show. I knew this was going to be a blinder. Yes, we always have the time if you have the space here at Type 40 Live. Of course we do. Stay notified. There's lots more coming tomorrow, in fact, here for Doctor Who Podcast Day. Make sure you're following our social media accounts as well. Doctor Who Podcast Day is here for creators and for listeners alike. Enjoy yourselves and bye-bye. We'll speak to you all again soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy Doctor Who
Bye,
Podcast
everyone.
Day. Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.